Come now, all you mangy dogs. Swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm. If your work be not too shoddy. Careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Jeffy, my boy, on with the show.
Welcome, everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to our weekly edition of Pirate Radio Podcasts. It's the Friday night feature interview, end of things. Episode 324, Secrets of the Occult, with Robert Morningstar. Before we get to him, however, and his biography, let us remind you that, of course, as always, I myself, your trusty host and companion, here for the duration of this week's show, the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. WPRPN.com is the website you'll want to drop by and take a look at. Keep in mind, of course, as always, sign up is free. All you simply need is a username, password, and email. From there, everything should be pretty much straightforward. If you do happen to run into any problems along the way, do not hesitate in getting back to us via our main email address, pirateoneradio@protonmail.com. We'll take whatever steps are necessary in helping to smooth things over, get you sailing off in just the sort of direction you hope to be. That email address is also very helpful if you have any PayPal donations you're thinking of sending our way. Always appreciated. In addition to that, though, let's not forget, it also is very, it's the email address you'll want to take note of if you have any show suggestions or guest ideas that you'd like to bounce off of this. So take a few moments as well to check out the show description end of things. We have a Teespring, Patreon presence where you can connect with us completely free of charge. There is a per item kind of pay-as-you-go approach as well, but for anyone starting out at the ground level, there's no charge at all, completely free. So definitely worth considering, helps to give us a bit of a boost. Odyssey is another place, as a matter of fact, where we pick up a bit of a boost, along with any number of your other favorite independent underground content producers, where you just drop by and click on their link, playing a little bit of the item that they have uploaded, and they immediately receive something in the way of booster power. So Minds.com, a similar type deal as well. Definitely worth taking note of. So DLive, Minds, Odyssey, and BitChute, all four of those platforms, as far as we understand, very similar type approach as far as simple digital rewards systems and wallets are concerned. But what else are we looking at there? We mentioned the Teespring end of things, of course. 50%, half of everything goes directly back, of course, to charity, to the grassroots. Anything that we do manage to generate here as far as sales and donations are concerned. Why? We're the Robin Hood. Hashtag WWRHD. What would Robin Hood do? Clearly, he and his band of married men and women, you would imagine, would take the time, make the effort to reach out to the wider community and do what they could to show a little support for those who are in a little more need than perhaps the rest of us. Liking, commenting, sharing, remembering to hit the subscription notification buttons. Very, very helpful as far as algorithms are concerned. Once again, helping to generate more of a presence for us, more street cred, and so forth. So do think about that as well if you'd like to support what we do here, along with, as always, passing word along to your friends, family, and co-workers. All right. Joining us for his first 2024 Friday night feature guest appearance, it's friend of the show and fellow digital freebooter, Robert Morningstar, civil intelligence analyst and Manhattan-based psychotherapist. Robert is an expert in Chinese language, history, and martial arts. He was awarded a degree in psychology via Fordham University, is an FAA licensed pilot and instrument ground instructor with nearly 30 years flying experience. All things esoteric and occult are this week's potential talking points, from Freemasonry and the Knights Templar to Jewish mysticism and Eastern spiritual traditions. Robert and his special guest companion, will be open to exploring pretty much everything under the sun. And as always, one simple social media link keeps it pretty straightforward and to the point. Substack.com at Robert Morningstar. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time, making the effort, and agreeing to do the show and to tackle this area of conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. And also, I'd like to tell the audience that Jaffe, for Captain Sinclair, Robin Hood, has agreed to be my co-host on Mondays on Revolution Radio Studio B. That's going to be Tuesdays in Korea at 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern in New York. And I'm very happy to have you aboard. Also, one correction, the Morningstar report on Substack, it's robertmorningstar.substack.com. And you can see about 100 articles that I've written over the last 2 years there,
right,
on everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. So with that phrase that you just pitched to us, let me start with this quote from the Bible. Vanity, vanity, everything is vanity, and there is nothing new under the sun. That's from Koheleth. Ecclesiastes, as it's called.
Oh, Ecclesiastes. Okay, well, we'll get into that here momentarily. I think that is one of the books which might, to some extent, in the eyes of some scholars at least, attributed in part to the influence of Solomon, but you can correct me on that if that's the case in just a few moments. In the meantime, we've got someone who's headed his way on up into the crow's nest, or at least he's supposed to be. He may be struggling a little bit with the peg leg that he recently, it was a serious cannon shot that he took. Yeah, Vinny, how you doing? Did you make it to the top of the crow's nest? If so, how are things looking? Any sign of the techno kraken?
Thus far, all is well. All is well.
That bloody techno kraken, I tell you, really gotta keep a lookout. Always, never fails to want to come around and want to cause all kinds of problems.
Yep.
So, and of course, go ahead.
We'll keep an eye out for him.
You of course, let's hear a little bit about you and the Cans Project, GMNO, over on Minds. Just a quick thumbnail sketch, and of course, we should have actually covered this in the pre-show kind of audio tech check, but with the interjections as they may arise from your end, just text to us on the side, and we'll try to pick up on that, or just raise your hand here, and then we can bring you into the conversation from time to time. So, and as if you could, as
looking forward to tonight.
Come again?
I'm looking forward to tonight. It's going to be a very fun show for everyone.
That's right.
So buckle in, okay? So we'll have some fun. Yeah.
And we are hoping that at some point here, maybe in the spring, maybe in the summer, that you and Robert will finally manage to make that connection from Manhattan to Brooklyn, or maybe somewhere, obviously maybe meet you in the middle. So hopefully not stuck in the middle, but not like that recent subway shooting out of Brooklyn.
No, that was very interesting, wasn't it?
We'll cover that in the news. We'll tackle that with this upcoming Tuesday's news, definitely. So, alrighty. Okay, Robert, the book of Ecclesiastes and Solomon's influence, was I onto something there, or is that completely off base?
Yes, it's from Solomon's era. Some people think it was his son, Koheleth, but no one really knows. The important thing are the contents. It's one of the most beautiful books in the Bible.
Sure.
For everything there is a season. So many songs, popped out of that as well. Proverbs
is a separate book, is that right?
No, I think Ecclesiastes and Proverbs are overlap.
Okay, so it's contained within Ecclesiastes, maybe. Proverbs resides within Ecclesiastes. Oh, perhaps, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure of that.
What does the term Ecclesiastes mean? Is it ecclesiastical? Maybe it's some sort of religious syncretism?
Well, ecclesia means church in Greek, so it must have something to do with temples, churches, church belief, dogma.
Right.
We should look up the etymology. We should look up the etymology of Ecclesiastes. But I know that
I'll take a look for that. That'll be fun. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
Sure.
Great. And I'd like to say to Vinny, I'm happy to be on with a fellow New Yorker, and we could meet up. We could meet up on March 21st. There's going to be a huge rally for disclosure. Daniel Sheehan is really pushing hard for disclosure, because that's one of the key mysteries and one of the reasons that we have a deep state. I'm going to a moment and get rid of this call.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yep.
Speaking of occulted, I mean, look no further than the world of ufology. Clearly, keeping it all hidden and unseen. So, Robert, maybe it.
And the weird part about that is, I find it kind of ludicrous that we've gone on for so long, because back in the 50s we had very clear video of them flying around in these devices that rode gravity waves,
right,
or magnetic waves.
The prototypes that they were being developed.
Yeah,
kind of reverse engineered. Yeah. Well, and then the 52 over the White House, which the amazing James Randi. I mean, while I'm down with a lot of what he is his debunking, as it were a term I'm not a fan of, but
same here with Randy. Yeah, some of it.
Well, yeah, but the 1952, what was it? Eisenhower's White House. Like, good luck.
Truman. Truman White House.
Okay, Truman, and he's like
July 26th.
His take on that was, is it just a trick of light? It's like just a camera trick of light, and it's like, isn't there video of that?
No, there is a film. There's a very good 16 millimeter film that was taken, and it was very dark. And my friend Wilbur Allen, who's a genius in photography, he had a way of illuminating it, and he brought it out. And it's a whole fleet of UFOs flying behind the Capitol. And Truman was told. He didn't buy it. He was told that it was inversion, reflections from a thermal inversion. They were looking for every possible excuse to get out of the fact that UFOs parked themselves over the White House while Truman was in his pajamas.
Yeah.
And he found out about it, and Captain Edward Ruppelt of Project Blue Book gave him the spiel, but everybody knows that it was real, including the Department of Defense, because they held a big press conference on July 28th, 2 days later, and they discussed it, and they said, that they are not optical illusions, that qualified people, pilots and other qualified observers have made reports of relatively incredible things. So, and then, by the way, there's a movie called UFO, The True Story of Flying Saucers. It was made in 1956. That's when I began my ufology, 1956. And this is available online. I think you can see it on Amazon, and you can find a copy of it on YouTube. And it's the best documentary. And it was made with the wholehearted cooperation of the U.S. Air Force. And all of these people that we hear about, from Project Blue Book's Captain Ruppelt to real airline pilots who were surrounded by UFOs. One airline pilot was flying an American Airlines flight across the South. It might have been Eastern Airlines, but two UFOs came around and they parked themselves on either side of the cockpit. And then they made circles around the plane and zipped away. So these pilots and other witnesses, Navy warrant officer named Delbert Newhouse, took a movie of UFO fleets flying over Utah. And then there's the famous Montana film, which is radically doctored. The Montana film by Nicholas Mariana, also 1951-52 era, captured two UFOs buzzing in and stopping near a water tower and then going on. And even in 1956, as an 8-year-old boy, I could see that the film was doctored. And I know who the doctor was. Maybe I'll tell you about it later if we talk about the Zapruder film.
So, yeah, reverse inversion of swamp gas was what I was thinking about.
That was Michigan.
Yeah.
That was Michigan, 1957, 67.
Yeah. So,
but you know who was really insistent on truth was Gerald Ford at that time. Congressman from Michigan. And he was pushing.
Well, it's too bad that wasn't the case with his role in the whole JFK assassination. If that would have helped tip the scales more in favor of truth. Which
he was a cover-up artist from beginning to end, actually.
Well,
there's a reason they chose him. He
was a Freemason.
All of them are Freemasons. Nobody gets anywhere in Washington without joining the Freemasons.
George H.W. Bush, not exactly Freemason, but Skull and Bones, which some people say is a quasi.
I think that's his Masonic. They have a lot of different names.
Right.
But Skull and Bones, Scroll and Key, they're all Masonic organizations.
Right. Yeah.
They're all different lots.
Interlocking organizations, I guess. Groups. Right. And they say, actually, well, I would like to get into the whole business of your history, within the context of Druidic traditions and practices. You have quite a story to share with our listeners on that front. And we do have some people listening who are quite curious to know more about that. But there's something more.
Yes.
You go ahead with that then, and we'll see where.
Well, since you ask about that subject, actually I was drawn to go to England in 1995. I studied in London under the chief druid, and the calling came in 1981 when I received a visitation. I had a near-death experience, and a ghost dressed in white from head to foot with what appeared to be a pharaonic headgear and a veil approached me and warned me that I should not speak to people of what I knew. And I felt that I was being threatened. And I asked him, "Where are you coming from? Are you threatening me?" And he said that Lucifer had taken over the world's religions and was going to use religion to destroy mankind. And that mystified me. And it began a lifelong study of world religions. I went into Islam, because that was also something that was hinted at in that visitation. And I found out about the satanic verses in the Quran, and the name of the novel that Salman Rushdie wrote was The Satanic Verses. And a lot of people think he made up the title of his novel, and it's not. They are actually what we would call quatrains or statements about Muhammad, in which he embraced Satan and his 3 evil daughters who had been thrown down to earth with him. And there were temples in Iraq, which is where it was, and Arabia, to these 3 demonic goddesses. And they were centers of temple prostitution where all the business was done. And then when Muhammad came up as a firebrand, as a prophet, a lot of people started following him and abandoning the pantheistic temples that flourished there and were the centers of the economy. So he was taken aside and threatened by the grandee of Jahiliyyah and told, Muhammad, you're a really charismatic guy and a lot of people love you and they're following you, but you're ruining the economy. Can we make a deal? You know, you can overthrow all the gods, but let us keep Uzza, Manat, and Alat. And Muhammad said, well, you know, I'm going to have to discuss this with the angel Gabriel, who was the one that made him profess Islam. So he went out into the desert and he conjured what he thought was the angel Gabriel. And he said, look, they're threatening to kill me if I don't accept these 3 goddesses and their father. And the angel Gabriel said to him, oh, it's quite all right. You know, we want this religion to flourish, so it's okay. You can accept them. So Muhammad went back and he made a public statement in this assembly, and he declared that he was accepting Uzza, Manat, and Alat as birds of paradise in his religion. Birds of paradise was their term for angels. So everybody cheered, and then Muhammad left, and he said, oh my God, that wasn't the angel Gabriel, that was Satan. Satan fooled me. And that's the source of the satanic verses. But they said to him, no deal, you made a deal, you know, and the deal is on, or else it's off with your head. About 300 years later, another so-called self-proclaimed prophet named Ashal-Magani came forward, and he started to draw the flock away from then, 300 years old, traditional Islam, which was ruled by the Caliph and the Imam. The Caliph was the king, and the Imam was the Pope, you might say, in our Western terms. And they said, this guy's really dangerous, you know, we've got to get rid of him. So word got back to Ashal-Magani that they were coming for his head and the heads of all his followers. So what he did is he wrote his theology in a long manuscript, which he called the Book of Religious Obligations. Now, I have to tell you that this is where the Luciferic heresy infused itself into Islam, because Ashal-Magani started preaching that he had become God by practicing a certain meditation. He said that he always followed the opposite of the truth. And because he had attained Godhead by following the opposite of the truth is a higher cosmic principle than truth, which is quite irrational. So, but he wrote his theology in this book, the Book of Religious Obligations, but knowing that if he signed his name to it, it would be burned. So he forged the name of a Sufi saint who had lived 200 years before him, and he slipped the manuscript into a library in Tehran. The Caliph, true to his word, sent men to execute Ashal-Magani and his followers, and they thought that was the end of that. But 200 years later, the manuscript was discovered and thought to be the writings of the Sufi saint who was revered from 300 years before. So now it was adopted, and the Book of Religious Obligations became the basis of Sharia law. So that's part of it. Now, I'm going to jump over to the Druidry, because the ghost that came to my bedside to warn me about all these things on March 30th, 1981, drew me to study these traditions and Freemasonry and Judaism and Buddhism and Hinduism and the world's religions in general. And that drew me to England, where I was invited to participate with the Druid Order at the solstice ceremony in 1995. And I continued to journey to London and to Stonehenge through 2002, where I learned that the basis of Druidry is based on teachings that arrived in England 7,000 years before in the persons of Egyptian priests who used to journey to England when there was a land bridge across the English Channel. You know, the cliffs of Dover, they once stretched across to France and they could walk. So before that land bridge dissolved, being destroyed by the English Channel, the Atlantic Ocean, this teaching arrived in England and became the basis of Druidry. So it's a very pure form of Egyptian religion. And of course, Egypt is where monotheism arose with Akhenaten. And we also talked about Scotland and Freemasonry. The home of Freemasonry is Scotland. But the stone on which the English kings are crowned is called the Stone of Scone, or the Stone of Scotia. Scotia was the eldest daughter of the king Akhenaten, who left Egypt when Akhenaten's religion was overthrown. And she arrived in Ireland. She became the Queen of Ireland. She sired 5 sons. Her 5 sons went on to conquer Scotland. And that is why Scotland is called Scotland, because of Queen Scotia, daughter of Akhenaten.
Yeah, I'm just ask you, Robert, just with the speakers, I'm not sure if there's anything you can do about this with turning the monitor speakers down, or maybe pointing them, or pointing them away from each other so that there's no echo feedback loop, but with a delay. But yeah, this is something. So Ireland, Scotia, Scotland. This is something which some of us have definitely heard about. She went to Ireland first of all, is what you're saying, though, and sired
yeah, she left on 2 ships. After Akhenaten was overthrown,
right?
Akhenaten and his retinue went off into the deserts, and he
kind of like Moses, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's my theory, is that Akhenaten was Moses. And that the monotheism that Akhenaten preached and taught, enforced, was what became the monotheistic religion that's called Judaism. But all of the religions have been perverted. There's been an infusion of Satanism and Luciferism that has now engulfed all the religions. And the migration of that heresy from Ash'almaghani, it spread through the Muslims. Then when the Templars conquered the Holy Land for 100 years, they had intercourse with Muslim mystics, and that's where they absorbed it, and they transmitted it back to Europe. Then in Judaism, there was a rabbi named Sabbatai Tzvi, and he went to Turkey. And when he went to Turkey, the Caliph forced him to convert to Islam. And that's where he picked up this heresy. Then he escaped, and then he went to North Africa, and from North Africa he went to Yugoslavia. When he went to Yugoslavia and then in Eastern Europe, he declared himself the Messiah on June 6th of 1666. And he declared as a Messiah a new law, which was throwing away the old law, the 10 Commandments, and inverting them. He began to preach something called redemption through sin, that basically you could purify yourself by doing the most evil things and getting over them. It's very interesting, you know, that Oscar Wilde, great poet and playwright, I once read something he wrote, and he said that the only way to get over temptation was to give into it. And that precisely echoes this teaching of Sabbatai Tzvi. So he went off into Poland, and then the whole thing spread. He had over 1 million Jews following him as Messiah, and this is what he taught. And the remnant of it is still active in Judaism. So I make a distinction between Toranic Jews or Torah Jews who follow the law of Moses, the Ten Commandments, and then those who have inverted it. And those who have inverted it are anti-God, materialistic, communist, and they are basically who the Zionists are. And it's my belief, my understanding, that Zionism has hijacked Judaism, and they have enslaved Jewish people, and they keep them under thrall, like slaves. And they're leading the Jewish people to destruction.
Uh-huh.
And these are people who practice human sacrifice. We were talking about Solomon before. When Solomon died, there was a rebellion in his kingdom, and 11 of the tribes rebelled and moved north and established Israel. Judah remained the southern kingdom, and Israel became the northern kingdom. But the Israelites went and intermarried with the Canaanites, which was something that was forbidden by God. And they intermarried with the Canaanites and the other pagans who practiced the worship of Moloch and Baal, and they adopted those traditions, human sacrifice and and child sacrifice. And they devolved into another sect which operates even to this day. Now, back to Druidry. There's a great misconception that Druids worship Satan. There's nothing to do with Satan. The word Satan is never mentioned in Druidry. And it's a very benign, benevolent, compassionate philosophy. And I've had the privilege of being at Stonehenge at the summer solstice 7 times in my life. And I have experienced direct infusion of knowledge. It's very interesting. The stones of Stonehenge are impregnated with electromagnetic fields. And the best analogy that I can give you to this knowledge, how it arrived, is I walked through a trilithon. That's the 3 stones, 2 uprights and a lintel stone, the main trilithon. And I walked in and walked through. And when I had passed through the trilithon, I knew something that I didn't know before I crossed that gate. And one of the things that I learned from Stonehenge was the location of Atlantis. This happened to me in 1998. I was in meditation at Stonehenge, and my soul was taken up directly, straight up into outer space, and I looked down upon the earth. And I saw Giza, I saw Stonehenge, the prime meridian. Stonehenge really is the prime meridian. They had to build that observatory about 60 miles away, 1 degree off, and that's what they call the prime meridian, which, by the way, runs right through the Royal Naval Academy. The central avenue of the Royal Naval Academy is the prime meridian. But be that as it may, the spirit took me up and I looked down upon the world and I saw a triangle. I saw Giza, 30 east, 30 north, on the 30th latitude. And then I saw the prime meridian. And then I went up to Stonehenge, which is at 52, and it drew a triangle. And the spirit said, flip that triangle, see where the corner lands, right? So I became obsessed with this idea. So I came back to the United States. I grabbed my Rand McNally map, and I plotted it right on the map. I drew in yellow marker Giza to the prime meridian, Giza to Stonehenge, and it created that triangle. And so then I flipped it to 30 west, and it landed in the Atlantic Ocean. And I said, holy mackerel, well, I have to find out what's at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean there. But no charts were available at the time. And this is a really interesting story. I told my cousin Mark, who worked in Washington for the federal government, various agencies. And I said, I really have to find out what's at the bottom of the ocean there. He says, oh, don't worry, I can get you any chart. My friend works for the USGS, and they've got all the charts of the whole world, including the ocean. He told me he can get me any chart. So I said, great. Can you ask him to get these charts for me? And he said, sure, give me the coordinates. So I gave him 4 coordinates, including 30 west of the prime meridian on the 30th latitude. So he said, I'm going down Monday. My friend's ready. He's going to get us the charts. I'll call you when I come back from lunch. So I waited for the call. 2 hours went by, and he finally called. And I said, hey, did you get the charts? He said, well, no. I said, why? And he said, well, I went there and I gave him the coordinates. And he disappeared for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Then he came back and he said to me, hey, Mark, who is this cousin of yours? He said, well, he's my cousin Robert. He's interested in a lot of things. You know, he's a pilot, he's a scientist. Why? He says, well, Mark, there are only 4 regions of the Atlantic Ocean which are still classified top secret by the U.S. Navy, and your cousin just asked for 3 of them. So that was that. But I waited a year. A year later, a DVD or a CD came out that was called Small Blue Planet, put out by the Lamont Doherty Laboratories, geological laboratories here in New York. They had mapped the whole world, and they put it on a CD. So I got it. I put it in my computer. I went to 30 North and 30 West, and guess what I found? The Navy had named this the undersea. This is 6,000 to 9,000 feet under the ocean. They named it the Atlantis Seamount, the Plato Seamount, and the Great Meteor Table Mount. And I scratched my head and I said, Great Meteor Table Mount? How did a meteor get 9,000 feet under the Atlantic Ocean? Well, that gave me my answer as to why Atlantis was sunk. Apparently, a great meteor struck the continent of Atlantis in the western region, precisely at 30 North, 30 West, and caused the submergence of the ancient continent of Atlantis. And Atlantis is very important in all of these traditions. The Druids, the Irish, the West Africans, the Berbers, the Iberians, the original people who lived in Spain and Portugal. These are where the survivors of Atlantis, the Basque people, for example, these are what I believe to have been the survivors of Atlantis. And of course, the American Indians, the Iroquois, had legends that their ancestors arrived in North America on great canoes after a great flood had occurred. So I think this is tying all of these mythologies together and giving us a true picture of our ancient history. So we can take it from there.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'm just wondering if careful with the speakers once again, Robert.
My speakers are on very, very low, and
maybe tell you what then, maybe it can't be Vinny. He's muted out. All right. Well,
I guarantee you that my recording is going to come out perfectly clean.
Okay. So I'm just trying, we got to get to the comment end of things here first, maybe is the best way of approaching this. It's things are really heating up in a big way. Connecting this go around real live time with Joshua Allen Huckle, David Wilkes, as in Wilkes Booth, perhaps. I'm willing to venture. Roger Hansen. We have I'm not sure what this is here, some Hindu spam or something perhaps, but it's all good, I guess. Substack is under attack from the ADL. They say it's full of hate speech. So they gotta, there's opinions and views that maybe hurt people's feelings. They have to get.
They're going after Substack like they're going after TikTok, right? Is this sort of this another switch that they're doing?
People's feelings, someone's feelings are being hurt somewhere, and so they've got to totally do away with the entire platform, obviously, right? So
tiring, huh? Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. Think about the time and effort and research that people put into their Substacks, and then, well, it's just going to disappear because of feelings.
Well,
right?
Look, it's going to be the same thing as what they've been doing with, I think, BitChute and Rumble and even, Minds. Of course, any free speech platform is going to be in their sights. Clearly, there is a war, folks. There is a war, and
they're trying.
The war is against truth. The war is against truth. Yeah. It's happening on Substack. See, this invasion of Gaza has opened up the floodgates. The genocide of the Gazan people by Netanyahu. I'll just say it's Netanyahu.
Pretty anti-Semitic man. That dictator Netanyahu couldn't be any more anti-Semitic than what we're seeing.
Well, he's leading the Jewish people to destruction.
Right. Yeah.
He's ruining the economy. But the main thing is, on Substack, I've written 2 articles about the attack on October 7th, and I wrote them on October 9th. I had enough information on October 9th to say Israel turned off its artificial intelligence defense perimeter. Israel moved the troops that were supposed to be protecting the settlements, moved them to the West Bank.
Inside job.
Israel let the attack happen.
Yeah.
And they let it go on for 7 to 12 hours before responding.
It was sloppy. It was so obviously,
there was a clear abdication of responsibility.
It was the sloppiest inside job that I'm aware of in recent memory. Really, it's so full of holes and contradictions.
Oopsie, I didn't see those guys sneak by in the paraglider. Really?
The paragliders. Where do these guys get to train? And Israel had this artificial intelligence net. They also had 3 balloons that were suspended, permanently flying with surveillance equipment that was monitoring the Gaza Strip. Let's call it that piece of land, desert between Gaza and the settlements. And these 3 balloons which hooked into the artificial intelligence network. And 2 of those balloons fell a month before, and they didn't replace them. And I have videos in my article on Substack called The Israel-Iran War. That's what it really is. You see? They're all using surrogates. But I have IDF soldiers, both men and women, saying, this is impossible. I manned monitors. I was there. You couldn't have a rat or even a cockroach crawl up to the fence without us knowing. And they're adamant that it was allowed to happen. And Israel is about the size of New Jersey. And Vinny knows that's a pretty small state. And it would have taken 15 minutes to send a gunship helicopter across Israel to stop the onslaught. But Netanyahu let it go on for 12 hours. Furthermore, there's something that the Israeli IDF, a protocol that they follow, which is called the Hannibal Protocol. And this is a dictum that if Israelis are captured by Hamas or jihadis, Muslim terrorists, kill them all, kill Hamas and kill the hostages. And videos have emerged that have been leaked out showing gunship helicopters blowing up SUVs of people who were trying to escape from the music festival and from the settlements. Right. And over 200 cars. This takes the cake. 200 cars are collected, and they're going to be chopped up and buried. And they show that they've been blasted from the sky. So the cover-up is falling apart, and they have lost sympathy that the world had for them. And the most astounding thing for me is the turn of the Democratic Party against Netanyahu's government.
Well, you know why that is, though, don't you? I mean, I'm not certain of this, but I have a pretty good idea.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, it's because that they're losing their voter base.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Right. Right.
And they they can only fake so much with the rigging of the electronic, I guess, computer systems, supposedly. Right. But I'm not sold on that. I think as far as I have of the belief and of the persuasion, maybe I'm wrong, but that they can, you could have nobody show up to vote for Biden and he'd still win. Because of the rigging.
I don't think it's going to be so easy this time because they don't have COVID lockdowns. They don't have mailboxes. And I think people, the poll watchers are going to be watching like hawks and they're not going to let themselves be pushed away 30 feet away from the tables or have the windows blocked over with cardboard like they did in Philadelphia. That's not going to happen. People have had and they know what's happened.
We'll see. We'll see. So,
if anything, we should just go back to paper ballots in the big old machines.
That's the way it should be.
That makes the most sense.
Definitely should be. You should have a voter ID. I mean, really, they require IDs to get on airplanes. They require IDs to do almost anything now in the police state of New York, where they have put out the National Guard in the subway systems to check people's bags.
They're trying to ease in this whole martial law thing to make it normalize it, right?
Slippery slope.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But it's unconstitutional on 2 counts. The Constitution forbids illegal searches and seizures, and it forbids segregation. Well, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, people are freely. It's kind of like with the kill shot so-called mandates. It's not exactly like people saw themselves with literal guns held to their heads. What I'm seeing, the footage out of the subways, is people are being asked and then freely submitting. Where I haven't seen too many people say, "No, this is a violation of my Fourth Amendment rights." Yet, and
Jeff.
And it's they're picking too. It's very interesting.
Well, you know what the problem is,
guys?
It's
a clown show.
Yeah.
It's a real clown show is what I've got to say. And Hochul the yokel, her, Vinny, you got your feet? Hochul the yokel?
Governor,
right.
Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, Andrew Cuomo's advice.
If ever there was someone who looked like a real wicked witch, I mean, she's got it. She's got the look down pat. So, but let's get back to the comments here. We limited time. Bail, and there's a number of questions that are coming Robert's way as well, including whether or not he's you don't have to answer this immediately, Robert, but wondering if you're a believer in the stories of Agartha. And I guess that would, in some ways, dovetail with the whole hollow earth theory, presumably coming. I'm not sure. Actually,
yes,
Blavatsky
I do believe in Agartha. I believe it's not a hollow earth. It's a warren. It's tunnels.
Okay.
They don't go down to the center of the earth. It's not hollow, but it's been cored out. And I do believe in Agartha and Shambhala. Those legends emanating from Tibet. Talk about those 2 cities, and of course they're underground. They're netherworldly cities. They are capitals of demonic entities.
Oh, both Shambhala and Agartha are capitals of demonic.
Yes.
How about that?
Well, they're accessible by portals, aren't they?
That's interesting because the Tibetan tradition, as I understand it, the way they have it is Shambhala is more the benevolent, enlightened domain, whereas Agartha is darker and not so much to be desired. But at the same time, the Dalai Lama himself does talk about. He says it's all in your mind. It's in the demons and all this. They are just emanations and extensions of your mind. And he's quite adamant about that.
Yes, the mind is interdimensional, Jeffrey. The mind is interdimensional.
Right.
And we either shut the gates on these demonic entities or we let them in. So the problem is people are psychologically uneducated and they think that every voice they hear in their heads is their own.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not. It's
well,
not.
And so the power of meditation then as a way of combating within the context of spiritual warfare. Very helpful, very powerful stuff if you go about doing it the right way, yes or no?
Yeah. Well, the Buddha taught a pretty good philosophy, but it basically has enslaved everybody to accept their condition as karma. I don't believe in that. But let me tell you something about Tibet. Buddhism in Tibet is an overlay over the antecedent religion, which was called Bon.
That's right.
The Bon religion. And
the swastika.
I scoured the world.
The swastika was there.
The swastika flew over Lhasa 1,000 years before it flew over Berlin.
Yeah, Bern.
But the point is, I scoured the world in 2000, the year 2000, 2001. I scoured the world for books. One was anything on the Bon religion, and the other, I wanted to get 1960s copies of the James Bond novels.
Oh.
Because the James Bond novels have been redacted.
Huh.
And the reason I wanted that was that I found out that when President Kennedy was assassinated, he had a briefcase with him, and when it was open, he had every copy of James Bond novels that had been published up to the day he died.
Really?
So I wanted to find out what has been redacted. And the redactions are radical. The books that were published were paperbacks. They were 300 pages. And now you buy a James Bond novel, and it's about 200 pages and big type. But to get back to the Bon religion practiced human sacrifice. Every 7 years, all of the tribes in Tibet had to send a delegation to Lhasa to pledge fealty and loyalty to the Dalai Lama. And the proof of that fealty and loyalty to the Dalai Lama was that every 10th man of the delegation was sacrificed. Human sacrifice.
What era
Because
was this? What years?
Bon was pre-Buddhism.
Yes.
Pre-Buddhist Tibet.
But there was the Dalai Lama. There was no Dalai Lama until Buddhism took root.
No, there was a Dalai Lama before.
Prior to Buddhism, there were Dalai Lamas.
Yes, there were. The tribal leaders of Tibet who lived in Lhasa were lamas. Maybe they didn't call them Dalai Lama, but it was lamas. And so they would sacrifice every 10th man from the delegations from all the tribes every 7 years as human sacrifice to draw down power and energy, chi or ki. Now, here's the interesting thing. We know how vicious the Japanese were in World War II, right? They practiced something called Shinto Buddhism, which is radically different. Look at what they did to China. When the Japanese invaded China, the atrocities that they committed in China are utterly loathsome. I won't even go into tell you about the rape of Nanking and what they did to Chinese women. But it's radically different from every form of Buddhism in China. And I found out that Shinto derived its principles directly from Tibet. So that viciousness, that demonic impulse is given free rein in both of them. And of course, Tibet was allied with Nazi Germany during World War II. And the Dalai Lama wrote a letter to King Hitler telling him how much he admired him and hoped he'd win the war. And the Germans, looking for the root race of the German people, went to Tibet from 1933. And for 10 years thereafter, they sent expeditions trying to find that connection of the German people with the Tibetans, because they believed the Tibetans were one of the root races and survivors of Atlantis.
Yeah.
So this
Heinrich Herrer, just sorry to jump in here for a moment. Robert, Heinrich Herrer, from the author of 7 Years in Tibet, remained and portrayed by, of course, Brad Pitt famously in the movie, remained good friends with the Dalai Lama until his dying day, just a number of years ago.
And Heinrich Herrer and the book and the film were nominated for Academy Awards until the ADL and that group of free speech promoters objected and had him tarred and feathered and banished. Right? That's the way it is.
Cancel. I guess that's early. The cancel culture and some of it.
Cancel culture,
early,
exactly. He was canceled.
Forms.
It was a great movie.
It was. I loved the movie.
Very enjoyable. It told the truth.
And China, let's not forget, China was none too pleased about the whole thing, nor with, was it Kundun, I think was another one?
Mm-hmm. Kundun.
Was it Scorsese, I think, had a central hand in that. So
I don't remember the director.
Let's get back to the comments, though, because, once again, time is limited. We got a lot of items coming our way here. David Wilkes talking about how they're friends with George Trump's grandchild, and we've heard that from him here before. Interestingly, the plumed serpent, Quetzalcoatl, I believe, is a reference there. Roger Hansen checking in just one more time, and via the UK, Martin Taylor out of the UK. He connects with us here on a pretty semi-regular basis, and I gotta. You could salute him, and we do take our pirate hats off to him. It's like around 4 a.m. of the UK. So thank you so much, Martin. Always appreciated. There's so much esoteric beliefs in the Bible, says Roger. The tricks of light returned each night for about a week. LOL. Is that right? 1952. The flying the UFOs over the White House. They returned on several nights for about a week.
Yes, they did. They did.
About that. Isn't that something?
They kept coming back. And they were not. Yes, and they were not inversions. Again, I emphasize this movie, UFOs, the true story of flying saucers. They have the best reenactments of that scene in the radar room with Navy officers, the real people. Major Donald Kehoe is in the movie.
Yeah.
He was the leader of NICAP, the National Investigative Committee for Aerial Phenomenon. See, there's been a civil war, internecine civil war in the military between the U.S. Navy and the Department of the Air Force and the Department of the Army since Roswell. The Navy has always wanted to tell the people the truth, and that's why it's not just chance that it was a Navy that released the Tic Tac videos in 2017 with the blessing of President Trump, because it was the Navy that recruited President Trump to run for office. And so the Navy, since 1947, and Mr. Forrestal, James Forrestal, who was killed at Bethesda, was thrown out a window because he wanted to tell the people about the UFOs. And he also... Yeah, he was murdered. Yeah, they made a lame story about him trying to climb out of the 16th story of the building by tying bed sheets together.
Kind of like the recent Boeing whistleblower. It doesn't look good, does it?
Yes. Well, listen, let's talk to Mr. John Barnett. Was found killed in the parking lot.
That's right.
And guess what? Just yesterday, there were 2 emergency landings of Boeing 777s at Los Angeles Airport.
Oh, my God.
One blew a tire, and the other one was spouting flames out of the engine. So I put out a report that the ghost of John Barnett is not very happy. 2 emergency landings in one day.
Yeah.
You can't have DEI and flying airplanes.
Oh, my God.
You can't have.
It doesn't work. This has just reminded me. I had a dream just last night. This discussion now has reminded me. I was in an airplane, a passenger jet airliner, and one engine was out, and I was not piloting. I was just a passenger, and things were tilted, and the engine that there was I don't know, it was like an engine on fire that
Yeah, well, Jeffy,
we had to
you are
douse it
remote
in the
Europe.
ocean. It had to take the water in, I guess, to cool it
Yeah.
down. So it's like all a metaphor, I guess, but some
Well, Los
tricky.
Angeles
Just a little
Airport is practically on the ocean.
Yeah, this is
Los Angeles Airport is practically on the ocean right
crazy,
there.
man.
But
That was
listen,
crazy.
you were seeing, if you go and look up these events, I saw what you're describing. A passenger was taking video of the flaming engine.
Yeah.
It was shooting out flames. So we have that gift. See, all of us have that potential.
Right.
Our souls are in our bodies, but our souls can leave the body. I was talking about out-of-body experiences today.
Mm-hmm.
In Tai Chi, we believe that a silver cord, symbolically, an energy cord connects us from the crown of the head to heaven. And when you want to do an out-of-body experience, you send your soul up your spine and egress through the top of your head and climb that silver cord. And as you go up that silver cord, your spiritual vision expands just like climbing a mountain. And so you have the capacity to look sideways and see things that are present in this common time, the now.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go up and you can see the past and you can see the future. That faculty has saved my life many times, forewarning me about potential disasters that I was able to change by tweaking something, or either my behavior or modifying something, like switching cars. When I saw a car accident caused by a white car, at the time I had a white car. So I said, well, if I'm not driving a white car, I'm not going to be the guy that causes the accident. So I switched to a big golden transport van, and I was in a 6-car pileup. But the death and destruction that I saw in the dream 3 nights before did not happen. Everyone survived. 6 cars got totaled, but nobody died.
Wow.
See?
So pay attention, folks. Definitely pay attention. You know, Boeing airplanes are trans-safe, says Zane Ivy. Trans-safe Boeing airplanes. They're not really safe, but they identify as safe. So.
Well, you know, can I tell you something? I love Boeing. I love the Boeing Aircraft Company. I was in, my favorite airplane is the 747. I flew to China and back in some of the newest 747s. The 747 that I took going there on July 4th of 1986 flew over the North Pole, and I was able to go back to a big space at the back of the 747, and I did Tai Chi over the North Pole, which is one of the most remarkable visions I've ever had. I saw, again, this out-of-body experience. I go up there to do the Tai Chi form, and then I step out into outer space, and I look, and I see this 747 over the North Pole with this little man inside doing Tai Chi. And 747 carried me on the way back from China, and this is for all you flat earthers there. We flew back in an SP-400, 747, Northwest Airlines, and we hit a blizzard over the Arctic. And the pilot said, folks, we're in the middle of a blizzard, and you're flying in one of the newest 747s in the Northwest Fleet, and we're going to take this baby up as high as we can go to get out of this blizzard. And he gunned those engines, and we climbed up to 45,000 feet. And when I looked out the window, I saw the curvature of the Earth. I saw the atmosphere, the blue of the atmosphere, and I looked up and I saw the blackness of outer space. And I felt like, oh my God, I have my foot on the first rung of the ladder to outer space. And if you want to see how round the Earth is, go to YouTube and look up SR-71 flight to 70,000 feet. So please stop this crap.
So how high can these the modern day jet airliners what altitudes can they operate at? 45,000 feet? How much further than that is safe?
Oh, I think that's to keep it safe. That's the service ceiling. But I believe that if they really needed to, they can go to 50,000 feet. We have fighters that go to 50,000 feet.
What happens? So what happens then if they try to climb too high, too far.
Well, your engines will shut out. You flame out because there's not enough oxygen. See, you have to have the ram air getting into the engine to create the combustion.
Will you notice that as you're climbing, will you lose power as you're climbing because of the declining oxygen then?
Yes. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Back to the comment section here briefly. Once again, we got to stay up to speed here just to, typically, well, a lot of others who don't have it as bad as we do here with being endlessly targeted and, attempts to cancel essentially. The super chats unavailable, and unfortunately, via what we have to offer here because of how YouTube has right from as soon as we achieved the 1,000 members subscriber threshold, they awarded us with demonetization. So yeah, stay classy, YouTube. But Martin Taylor saying that they're listening to the show, however, in a semi-delirious state due to post-chemotherapy treatment. So not completely all there. Well, let's, if we can, everybody, I would, if it's okay with Martin.
I say a prayer for you.
Yeah, let's
say a prayer for you.
Yeah, thought, intention, experiment. Everybody come together with the healing energy, prayers, and good vibrations.
Yeah.
Martin,
and believe in your own healing powers, my friend.
Right.
Have faith in your healing powers.
Mm-hmm.
Your immune system is a miracle of creation. All of us here tonight listening are descendants of people who survived the Black Death, the Black Plague, the Spanish flu. But some of us have been compromised by the mRNA vaccine.
Oh, boy.
That thing is AIDS. When I saw the animation that came out 1 week after they marketed the clot shot, I was shocked because I've been studying HIV and AIDS since 1980. I was one of the first people to know that it was happening. Before it was called AIDS, it was a terrible...
AZT. Yes.
It was, yeah, that's the other thing that killed so many of those people. That's Fauci's time. But I learned the methodology of HIV, how it invades the body, and it's a retrovirus. So the retrovirus enters the body, it hijacks a cell, it splits and replicates another strand, and then becomes the provirus, the DNA virus that becomes HIV, and it wrecks your immune system. Well, when I saw the animation put out by Pfizer and Moderna about this mRNA technology, said, holy mackerel, to use a nice word, holy mackerel, this is AIDS. The mechanism that the mRNA vaccine utilizes is identical to HIV. The HIV invades with a retrovirus, RNA, right? An RNA, ribonucleic acid strand. The mRNA, same RNA, but with a messenger. But we don't even know what that message is. But it does exactly the same thing. It enters
from the inside. Yeah.
And it takes it from the inside and invades you, and it compromises your immune system. It also plugs up in the nucleus of the cell where the DNA resides. There is an opening for the release of something called interferon. Interferon is a very potent, you might call it a natural drug of the human body that fights diseases and fights cancers. Well, Dr. Stephen Quayle, who testified before the Republican Congressional Committee in 2022, pointed out they found that the mRNA vaccine plugs that hole and doesn't let interferon emerge. The other thing, and it just came out today, and one of the reasons they want to get rid of Substack is that some of the very advanced researchers are publishing on Substack, and they have found that alien DNA is in the mRNA vaccine, in addition to fungus and bacteria, and something called nagalase. Nagalase is something that causes cancers. On the same note, for my friends in England, congratulations, the NIH has banned transgender treatments for children. They have found out that transgender, quote unquote, drug therapy to change a child's gender causes cancers. The other thing that they found out is that these groups of children that they've been choosing were selected from groups of children that were already expressing homosexual tendencies. So it appears that they want to neutralize that tendency toward homosexuality by changing their gender. And what they've been doing is causing cancers in children. So congratulations, England, you woke up. God bless you all. I love England.
Well, step on the right. Yeah, step in the right direction.
We can follow the example here. Wow.
Oh boy. Well, not with who. It's going to be a bit of an uphill struggle, presumably, with the individual who's been appointed as your chief. Is it Surgeon General? Is it a dude? Looks like a lady. You know.
Yeah, Richard Levine. Yeah, he needs to go along with these other.
So, by the way, just for the record here, because we are live streaming via BoobTube, that general disclaimer: we're not here to issue any formal medical, legal, or financial advice. If you do have any problems in those areas, by all means, reach out to your local experts or people that you're able to connect with through the interwebs with the who bear the appropriate credentials. Wink, wink.
This station might not condone this next statement from Vinny from Brooklyn, but you should consider the shot a gun to the head. Thank you.
That's just, and that's your. Well, I think hopefully we're entitled to our personal opinions.
Hey, we're entitled to opinion, entitled to report the news. Everything I've said to you is reported.
Mm-hmm.
There are many really noble doctors, right? Not the ignoble doctors that have been running the show at the CDC, the FDA.
Right.
Dr. Anna Mihalcia, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Robert O. Young, Dr. Paul Alexander. All of these people are publishing on Substack, which leads me to the subject of this reptilian race that's operating amongst us. I said I'd speak to Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls reveal that the people at Qumran were engaged in a long-term genetic repair program to repair the corruption of the Adamic gene. When I read Genesis and I read about Adam and Eve's immortality and how they lost it after Eve had sex with the serpent and gave birth to Cain and Abel, I realized that a sin, quote unquote, is not enough to alter your genetic makeup, but a virus is. So what I believe happened to Eve is that she contracted a venereal disease from the serpent. The serpent virus caused the snake flu, and Adam and Eve lost their minds. They lost their innocence, and they lost immortality. Now, immortality was lost when this serpent virus was injected into Eve, and through shedding, she passed it to Adam. And this serpent virus attacked the telomeres of the DNA. The telomeres are the ends of your DNA strands.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that we reproduce or replicate, a cell replicates, it produces a new copy, the ends of it are slightly deteriorated, and that goes on. And so if we had the ability to repair the telomeres, we would not grow old. We would not become diseased. So that's my theory of how we lost it.
And back in the day, of course, Noah, and I'm trying to think of a few other names. Methuselah, I believe, is one that comes to mind. These people were what, like 700-800 years old, supposedly?
Yeah, Methuselah lived 900 years.
It's a question that came up in my university days, one of our seminars and so forth. Like, what was this all about? You know, they were asking, like, what do you think was going on here? So... yeah, definitely some sort of, it seems, genetic manipulation. Michael Tessarian has picked up on this in a big way as well.
Yes.
So it's important, definitely, to reflect upon and to keep in mind. I was just going to ask you out of the blue, the power of the heart. We're talking earlier about healing, meditation, good vibrations, Wi-Fi as well, too. Let's not forget. There's another point I was going to kind of bounce off of you. The potential dangers of Wi-Fi.
Yes.
It is a military weapon. Let's
Yes.
not kid ourselves, folks. Anytime these new technologies or innovations come along, military or wherever they are the first to seize upon them in trying to determine how they can best, make use of what they have at their disposal to give them an upper hand, an advantage.
Yes.
So the heart, the heart, meditation, and basically within the context of spiritual warfare and voice to skull technology,
Right.
with the using I suppose Wi-Fi is how they do it, really. So
Yeah.
thoughts
Well,
on
it's
that?
microwaves. The
Yeah.
voice to skull is a technology that projects two microwave beams to the target. And where the two beams cross, let's say it's your center of your head, they can attach a microphone to make that intersection point oscillate, and you will hear voices in your head. That's why I say to people, as I said earlier, people are not psychologically educated enough to realize that all the voices they hear in their heads are not their own.
We're being
So
played. We're totally being
I
played.
ask people, stop yourself a couple of times a day when you have a strange thought and say to yourself, is this thought I'm thinking really my own?
Where did this come from?
And you'll find that it's not something that you generated. And also, these demonic entities, they're interdimensional, and our brain has the capacity to journey interdimensionally. That's what you do when you dream. That's what you do when you have an out-of-body experience or remote viewing experience. Now, this technology that we're talking about, the Wi-Fi, is designed to interact with the mRNA vaccine, which
Right.
contains graphene.
Charles Lieber he's the main guy that we need to keep our eye on, folks. He was the one who patented this technology. Go ahead. Continue, please, Rob.
Well, they put a MAC address inside everyone who got the shot, pretty much.
What happened, Vinny?
They installed a MAC address inside everyone who got the shot. You've seen the people go, the Bluetooth, they have a Bluetooth signal,
Like an ISP address?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can like a garage door,
or a QR code, I suppose.
Or a printer, or anything that you can access Wi-Fi through your computer. And this was discovered in Germany and verified in Australia. This guy in Germany had his iPhone he was looking at. He saw all these MAC addresses going by. He was going, where are all these devices? Because it's supposed to identify devices that you can utilize. If there's a Wi-Fi printer somewhere, it'll show it on your iPhone. You can go and send something there to be printed. Well, he was wondering, where the hell are these MAC addresses going? And then he looked up and he saw the crowds going by, and he saw that the MAC addresses thickened or got denser in the display when there were a lot of people, and then they thinned out when there were few people. And Jaffe and I were talking about that Australian guy who went into a cemetery to the graves of people who had died of COVID or the clot shot, and he was picking up the signal from the graves. And they said, no, that can't be happening. You must be picking up that signal from someplace else. So he built a Faraday cage. Faraday cage blocks off all electrical signals. It's like a shell that was, the inside of it will be isolated from all radio signals. He took it, he put it on the grave, and then he stuck the iPhone under there. And yes, it was picking up the MAC address of the recently deceased person. So folks, the world is waking up very quickly, and this program is part of that awakening. You're never going to hear this on CNN. You're never going to hear it on MSNBC, because they are co-conspirators in the mass murder of millions of people and the crippling of many more millions. And you asked me about the heart chakra. Isn't it interesting that the mRNA vaccine attacks the heart.
Right.
So many people, myocarditis, pericarditis, heart attacks left and right, strokes, rapid turbo cancers, they call them.
Spontaneous abortions.
Oh, yes, 85% in Canada.
And now the tyranny is coming down harder than ever with these ridiculous, the feelings legislation out of Canada and God only knows.
And North Dakota. I'm warning the people of South Dakota. I'm really shocked that Governor Kristi Noem is pushing this bill that to criticize Zionism is to be anti-Semitic. Nothing could be farther from the truth.
She's whether she realizes it or not, she's promoting a pro-Satanist agenda. If that's the case, she's the total inversion of the truth.
That's right. Well, but you just said the word. This is what it is. The whole world is under a mass onslaught, a satanic attacks on every level. We're being attacked psychologically, emotionally, economically, and biologically.
Food, education,
every possible
media. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Right down to every last little nanoparticulate. I was kind of onto this years ago before it ever started to heat up, but I didn't really want to speak out too much about it because, well, because now I was seeing the full spectrum dominance, this faux singularity. I guess it all started. That kind of got me thinking, and you know how dangerous that can be. People actually start to think without putting any limitations or restrictions on where they go with what it is that they're reflecting upon. So it's right down to every last nanoparticulate. Indeed, is what we're up against here. So shout out to Joey Boomer, who's dropped in talking about he's feeling like crap, but he definitely wants to listen. He's happy to be hearing from both Robert and Vinny.
Feel better, Joey.
Feel better, Joey.
Yeah,
we're with you.
He's a fellow expat living here out of South Korea. David Charles as well too. Hollow Earth believer is what he's sharing with us there. Now this is good. There's a number of comments we're not going to be able to get to. If there was a super chat feature worked into what we were, what we were looking at here, it'd be a little easier to kind of cherry pick. But we're doing the best we can, obviously. Okay, says Zane Ivy. I'd like a source on that observation that Shinto in Japan derived from Tibetan belief. Well, I will tell you, I know a little bit about that. I'm not going to get into it right now, but
source forthcoming.
See, well, because I've been here in Korea for some time, and in fact, right next to where we're based out of, I've got something, a little wooden. Take a picture of it sometime, I suppose. Robert, you don't read Korean, do you?
No, I don't. I only read Chinese.
You're Chinese, yeah. So, and there's a lot of big influence of that here in Korea, but this is the Hangul, not Hanja, but Hangul. And
let me ask you a question about a Korean. Korean's a phonetic alphabet, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's phonetic.
It matches like 85% with English, and oh hell yeah, and there's something really funky going on as far as the history goes, because there's so many words that are just so obviously the same. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like why in Korean, way, and these are not new words either, folks. Trust me. Not like taxi, pizza, elevator, TV. No. So why way? What muat? This is what they say. Muat.
Hey, listen. I want to recommend the book for people who are interested in philology and etymology. Mm-hmm. There's a book called The Key by John Philip Cohane, Cohane. It's one of the most important books I ever read in my life. He was a Yale University philologist and etymologist, and he went around the world and he deduced that all the world's religions have 6 building blocks for the most sacred words in all the world's religions. They are Ak and Og, Eloah, Hawa, which is related to water, Mana, which is related to nourishment. Ash, which is an evil sound, like the hiss of a snake. And
Ashkenazi.
no, I think I got them there. But this book, when you read this book, you will never look at language in the same way again. He points out that the Native American language has this word og embedded in all of these names, like Chicago, Milwaukee, Oshkosh. All these Indian names are impregnated with these words. Manna, which has to do with nourishment, mango, banana, and Eloah is actually Elohim. Hawa is water. And you see that embedded is another level of meaning in the world's languages. So Hawa, aqua, Latin, agua, eau in French, they're all related. And this is something that the Germans were really, really pioneers of. They were the ones that developed the awareness of what is called Indo-European languages.
Yeah.
So they traced back German and English, and they kept going back, and they wound up going back to India and the Vedas and putting it together. That's why they wound up in Tibet looking for the root races.
I guess so. So yeah, Indo-European as compared to the Semitic traditions, I believe is how essentially with the division, classification of languages, cultures, histories, and
well, speaking of Semitic again, I don't want to disappoint the audience, our audience, because I said I'd be talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
That's right.
And it turns out that when you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, you realize that what we call Christianity, which is a sect of Judaism, antedates modern Judaism. I went to see the Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit in New York, and they had displays there of what it was like at Qumran. And you know, the place was covered with crosses. There wasn't one single Star of David. The Star of David icon emerged in the 1700s as a symbol of the Rothschild family. They had
it's the Star of Remphan, isn't it?
Yes,
Ephraim?
The red shield, and that again is something that the Rothschilds imposed on Judaism. But let me say this: the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Revelations, is intimately related to the Dead Sea Scrolls, because the Book of Revelations reveals to us that there is a war in heaven, and that this war in heaven has come down to earth, that Satan and his minions have been cast down to the earth, and he's given the title, the Prince of the World or the King of the World, and that this war in heaven between Michael and his archangels and the devil and his angels reached a climax, and the archangels are guarding the world from above. That passage, verbatim, comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's a scroll called the War Scroll. The War Scroll, intact, was written into the Book of Revelations by St. John, because that is what Jesus believed.
Yeah, as recently quoted as well, too, let's not forget, by Benjamin Mad Dog Netanyahu, the sons of light and sons of darkness. Can you believe it?
Yeah, right. Now, another thing, he said that they have to kill the Amalekites. Now, here's a very interesting thing. About 10 years ago, I saw an article, it was in a magazine, interviewing Evelyn Rothschild. And they asked Evelyn Rothschild, are you a Jew? And he said, I am an Esauan Jew. And I was taken aback. Like, Esauan, E-S-A-U-A-N, Esauan Jew? Wait a minute. What is he talking about? Well, he's talking about the rivalry between Jacob and Esau. Jacob gypped his brother Esau out of his birthright, and there's enmity between them. So I started exploring this. Why is he saying that he is an Esauan Jew? Because an Esauan Jew would be the enemy of an Israeli Jew. And it all devolves to the grandchildren the Amalekites. The Amalekites were a totally pagan, vicious, human sacrificing, cannibalistic, blood drinking tribe. They were the grandchildren of Esau. And when Moses and the Hebrews left Egypt, they wanted to take this direct route through Edom to the quote unquote promised land. But when they went to the Amalekites said, no way, you're not going through our territory. You got to take the hard way around. And they made them take a very, very difficult and perilous route. And Yahweh got so mad at the Amalekites, he said to the Israelites, wipe out the Amalekites, kill all of them, men, women, children, animals, go into Amalekite cities and kill anything that breathes. That's a pretty vicious God, you know? And so when Netanyahu called upon the troops to treat them like Amalekites, what did God say? Go into every Amalekite village, kill every man, woman, child, and animal, kill everything that breathes. That is genocidal maniac.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I've never been down, and that's why I think Jesus came along with the New Testament, folks. Bit of a distinction there. Why did he do that? It's like all this love and the turning the cheek to your cheek to the enemy. These new, and they were foreign teachings too. Let's not forget 18 missing years. That's why I'm so very much of the persuasion that he traveled clearly. He was not just stuck in Palestine for 18 years. And yes, I'm not really sure he was Jewish. He was Palestinian first and foremost. And he really did rattle the cage of the Sanhedrin. Clearly, they were the ones who demanded that he be put to death. The clerical Jewish establishment.
Oh, the Romans did the dirty work. The Romans did the dirty work.
Yeah.
But Pontius Pilate, he knew he was dealing with an innocent man, and he said, I wash my hands of this. I was telling Jaffe that Pontius Pilate, for all of the negativity, associated with him, Pontius Pilate is actually a saint in the Catholic Church. And where did Pontius Pilate ultimately wind up with his wife?
The UK.
He wound up governor of Scotland.
And now, and you know this because you've researched it. How did you come to this conclusion?
Oh, yes, I've researched it. I've also read the 3 letters that Pontius Pilate wrote to Caesar describing his meetings with Jesus. He describes, there's 3 letters, 2 in Greek and 1 in Latin. And he describes traveling through Judea, as it was called then, or Palestine is Philistia, and seeing Jesus from a distance preaching. And he thought he was a great, great teacher. And he thought that his appearance, he said to Caesar, in appearance, he looks like we depict our gods in the statuary. He's talking about the Olympian gods. He describes his features, he describes his eyes and his hair. And then he describes how when he had to judge him, he walked up to him and he started trembling. Pontius Pilate, looking at Jesus face to face, started trembling in his bones at the power of Jesus Christ, just standing in front of him as an accused, not arguing, not angry, just in his calmness. And this is something that's very interesting. When you're able to be calm, you are able to still yourself. All of the noise in other people's bodies, which they are blind to, starts to emanate, starts to resonate. They start to feel their own anxiety, their own fears, and they project it on you. They project it on the calm person. Oh, that person, I can't stand being in that, but they give me the willies. They give me the creeps. No, man, the creeps are in you all the time.
You notice how often, like, for a good example, I think, is the cops will attack somebody and start beating them, and yelling at them, stop resisting,
Right.
and most of the time, well, a lot of times, the people are not resisting. They're saying, I'm not resisting, and then the cops will keep beating. Yes, you are resisting, and keep beating them harder. So
Yeah,
it's
theatrics.
oh my
Cop
God.
theatrics,
Oh,
that they're doing because they're wearing the cameras, and the cameras are recording both the audio and the video. So, we have a lot of sly criminals with badges, that's the fact of what I've seen. But then there are the heroes, as I said to you, Jaffe, when I hear a siren, and they punctuate my shows, because I live in New York City, in the heart of Manhattan, mid Manhattan, halfway from each end, and the sound of sirens are ubiquitous. And some people who listen to my radio shows get upset by the sirens. I said, listen, I love the sound of a siren. And you know why? Because it shows that someone somewhere is in danger, in peril. And someone who doesn't even know them is racing to their aid. And these people are heroes, the cops, the firemen, the EMS. So be patient with the sirens, because you might be the one on the receiving end of the siren someday, and you will hope that siren is really loud and that it gets to you really fast to save your life.
That's right.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, you have got there's a special guest in the wings. We've waited some time now. I'm not sure if they're available, but we had initially discussed she. I guess it is
the anonymous Janon. Yes,
yeah,
she's
Janon.
here. She came in late, so I've been carrying the ball.
I'm not sure if she
so
wants.
She's ready to say. She's ready to say a few words.
Is she willing to appear on camera, or would she like us to turn it off, or you turn the camera off, or?
I think it's time.
That's one thing I will say. You had mentioned the Morningstar report on Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern time. That's 12 noon here. Let's get that straight. Yeah. So hang on, 12. Yeah. No. That's 11 o'clock South Korea time. I missed the first hour now because of the time change. I can only come in on the second hour.
That's right. That's why I said 12 o'clock if they want to hear you.
Yeah.
But again, we are on 11 time, 11 in morning in Korea on Tuesday, 10 p.m. New York time, Eastern time, on Studio B, Revolution Radio on Studio B. On Sundays, I'm on Studio A at 3 p.m. Eastern time.
And I will. So I'll try to share those links, Robert, as well too, to promote the show, and so get them out there through our social media. But also, it's where I have been the last couple times appearing on camera for those that have been clamoring, to see Jaffe and his visage. What he actually
the visage. Yeah. You have a good visage.
Yeah, it's reasonably.
Yeah. I like the lumberjack shirt you wore the last time. Very Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bring the axe next time.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna.
So, Janon, what have we hit upon so far that you would like to recap? Did you think, was there anything that we did not go into as extensively as you would have thought would have been
good evening.
The best approach? Where would you like to take the conversation from here? We've got about, I don't know, maybe it's however long you like, I suppose, but 15, 20 minutes maybe, just kind of to wrap things up. Go ahead. We're happy to hear it. Thank you for dropping by. Always appreciate your warm, bubbly, feminine energy and presence.
Okay, thank you, Jaffe. Oh, well, I just think you've been having a really thoughtful and tremendously researched and valuable conversation. I would just like to add for people that we are at such a significant moment, in history, and these. It is a wonderful time. It seems like we are getting some insight into the history of humanity and these biblical and other accounts, of the beginnings of the what we now at the present time know as humanity. It's quite a time for looking more deeply into this. And I was on your program some time ago discussing some unusual things associated perhaps with we thought could be chemtrails or beyond chemtrails. And I just wanted to say that at the current time, the things we've been hearing today about ingredients in the injections to do with fungus, to do with serpent DNA or reptilian, it has come to my attention that it's possible, according to what Robert was discussing about this, the biblical account of Satan interacting with Eve, that as he discussed giving her a virus of a kind, but perhaps in putting something into the DNA of humanity itself that has endured in perhaps greater or lesser extent among different races. And so I would just like to add that a fungus as a basis for this, it's possible that there is actually a fungi in our very own DNA, which the reason I say fungi is because it's a unique organism with a unique capacity for consciousness and for permeating all life on Earth, including our own cells. Our own cells may even have a fungal component, certainly our connective tissue and our the membrane tissues and so on may be actually imbued with a derivation of a fungal material. Now, if there is a kind of a fungal material that it has imbued with metal and becomes kind of a Borg organism that's capable of transmitting and receiving signals from other dimensions or that are somehow related to an evil or negative influence, an AI perhaps, and beyond that, a spiritual entity. So if that was somehow imbued into humanity's junk DNA, and I recently saw, actually someone describing this, I couldn't believe it, but I did hear a description of this from another source, a respected source, not anyhow. So imagine if this perhaps harkens back to the Anunnaki stories of humanity's origins, and if the Anunnaki are somehow associated with this spiritual negative forces, which we've heard of quite different accounts of this possibility. So imagine if humanity as a whole is a kind of a bridge between negative entities and very holy entities and sacred entities of the earth and beyond. So we have the capacity to choose, if we're aware, as we've been discussing, being aware of our thoughts, being aware of the fact that we may be interacting more than we realize with a whole host, a whole world of spiritual reality. Mm-hmm. Some of it is most can be very positive, and then there's also the possibility it can be negative. And right now, we have a lot of support for the negative forces in everything we see around us, all the things going on. So it's more important than ever that we become aware of this and we seek to support that the strongest voice that we can attune to is something that brings us close to the heart, close to holiness, and close to transcendence of evil. And so these are my thoughts when I was listening to what you were saying, and I hope it makes some sense.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just a start. You could go on.
That was absolutely wonderful.
We could go on with you.
I mean, I'd like to say the biggest living creature on planet Earth was discovered under the soil of Michigan State, 30 miles in diameter. A giant fungus is living under the state of Michigan. And it was discovered by University of Michigan researchers who were, digging down, and, oh, look, we have a big mushroom down here. Yeah. And then they dug all around, and they found that this was one giant mushroom.
Wow.
So the largest creature on planet Earth is a fungus. I would remind you that these researchers who have been studying the residue in the vials that were given to them of the mRNA vaccine found fungus, bacteria, and nanobots, nanotechnology. And the Karen Kingston, you can look her up. She used to work for Pfizer, and she got all of the patents. And there's a Samsung chip in their patent. And this Samsung chip is a biometric chip that sends and receives. It monitors your heart, your blood pressure, your biological functions, transmits them, and can receive signals from them, can also listen to you from the inside.
Hey, Robert,
so, yes.
There's an operating system behind all that. You understand?
Yes.
What they do is they built a control mechanism for a human being that shrunk it down, miniaturized it, and dispersed it into elements to be rebuilt into the human body once ingested by whatever mechanism.
Vinny, I'm glad you said that, because Jill Janon and I were studying these patents and the statements from Pfizer, and they came out and said the mRNA vaccine is an operating system. So you are right on the mark, Vinny. They have injected an operating system into our bodies, those of us who took the vaccine, but others of us have been exposed by shedding, and that is a fact. People are exuding what look like little dust particles on their skins, but when you study them, they are bundles of fibers, multicolored fibers, black fibers. There's hydrogel, and some of the after effects of having COVID is coughing up these big gobs of, well, we would say phlegm, but it's not phlegm. Human phlegm is transparent. It's oozy and transparent. These gobs, they're expectorated, and they have the thickness of custard, and they have the viscosity of glue. So all of these things, I think, are byproducts of this fungal infection that we've all incurred. Nobody's free. Those of us who didn't take the shot have been exposed by shedding, and all of us are showing symptoms of it. But it can be controlled, it can be eliminated, and I'm working with certain scientists who are developing these protocols. And just between you and me, they say this is not of this earth. This is an alien thing that has come down and is attacking mankind. So the invasion from outer space, which we thought was going to come by seeing the aliens landing in spaceships, the invasion is from within, and this technology is part of it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like the way they talk about World War III. But you know what, folks? As far as I can tell, we're at the level now of about World War VII, or I think it's World War VII. Because World War III, essentially, that was the Cold War. World War IV kicked off with September 11th, wrapped up with the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan just a couple of years ago under Biden's watch, and that whole boondoggle is just, it would be a polite way of phrasing things. And then 5 is the broader war on humanity, World War VI, and that's full spectrum dominance too, as Robert and I had addressed earlier. This, it's my way of looking at it personally.
Well, let's not forget the bloodletting Ukraine.
That's World War VI, yes. Eastern Ukraine, and Biden's, or not Biden, might as well be Biden, yes. But Putin, his role in things, and I'm not so sure of Putin, what's really going on there, especially, given his role, track record, history as a graduate of Klaus Schwab's, aka Rothschild's, global youth leadership program way back in the day. World War VII. Can
I say something about Putin?
Gaza and Israel. World War VII.
Putin infiltrated the WEF to find out what their plan was for Russia.
Okay.
And when he found out what their plan was for Russia, he loves Mother Russia. He is a patriot. And I see Putin today. People are aghast. Putin in 2022 was in the same situation that John F. Kennedy was when the Cuban Missiles Crisis broke out. Nuclear missiles had been placed by the Soviet Union and Cuba, which were an existential threat to the United States. Well, the Department of Defense and Pfizer had put not 30 biological weapons laboratories on the borders of Ukraine and Russia. They had built 46. When Putin announced it, people began to investigate. And Victoria Nuland, who just resigned from the State Department, thank God, I wish she'd done it 10 years ago, she testified before the Senate committee that yes, they had 30 laboratories. And then 2 weeks later, the Pentagon said, no, it was 46. And what they were working on was gain-of-function bioweapons specifically targeting the Slavic gene. And I take umbrage at that because I have a Slavic gene. My father was born in Yugoslavia. Nikola Tesla was born in Yugoslavia. So there's the Poles, the Russians, the Lithuanians, the Estonians, Yugoslavians of all ilks. So they were targeting the white race, basically.
Oh, and African too, from what RFK Jr. tells us. The origins of that report that he shared with the public that he caught so much flack for. Where just to be clear, it's the Han Chinese, the Finns, and the Ashkenazi Jews who get a pretty light-handed toll that they end up having to. That they're looking at number-wise, whereas the Caucasian and African people, it's a lot more serious deal, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they failed with the African people because the Africans have been taking ivermectin since 1996 against malaria.
Oh my God!
Did you notice there was no mass death?
Right. That's Africa. But I'm look at
because of ivermectin.
Yes, but look at USA African. Look at the folks.
I got ivermectin from an Indian source.
Well, we need it. I'm telling the wife. We need help here, Robert. The wife is totally blue-pilled, and I'm saying, and actually, anyone out there listening, if you can help set us up with ivermectin, I don't have a credit card, but I can hit you up through PayPal, not a problem. We need ivermectin. The wife just kind of like, yeah, sure, all right, yeah.
Well, tell your wife it saved my life.
Well,
because I caught COVID. I didn't take the vaccine, but I caught COVID. And it was the nastiest flu that I've ever experienced. I've never experienced anything like it because you know what? It was like an alien invasion of my body. And I was in this other room really suffering, for practically a week.
Wow.
And at the worst part, I heard this voice saying to me, "You're going to die." And I said, Robert said, "I'm not going to die." I said, "No, you're going to die." "I'm not going to die." And it got louder and louder in my head, going back and forth. This entity telling me I was going to die. Then finally, I screamed out, I yelled out, "I'm not going to die."
Wow.
And I have a louder voice than you do because you have no voice. And then I invoked Michael the Archangel and Raphael the Archangel to come and help me. And I saw Michael the Archangel guarding my heart. And I saw Raphael chopping COVID snakes to pieces. And anybody who's really interested in Raphael, read the story of Tobit. In the Bible.
Right.
Tobit was sent to a town to collect some money that was owed to his father. And on his way there, these three men approached him and said, hey, we'll walk along with you. And one of them was the Archangel Raphael. And they warned him that, he was betrothed to this woman, I think Sarah. And the problem was she'd been married 7 times. And on her marriage night, a demon would kill her husband. So the Archangel Raphael is sent by God to protect Tobit. And on the way there, he tells him to go into the river and catch a big fish. And he catches the big fish. And he says, cut out the bladder and cut out the liver and carry it with you when you go to collect the dowry and to your marriage. And he said, on your wedding night, take the fish liver and throw it on the brazier, on the charcoal. And the fumes of that will drive the demon away. And just lo and behold, he gets married. The demon comes in and wants to kill him. He takes the liver and he throws it on the fire. And the fumes from the liver are so vile to the demon, he races away. And Raphael catches him and kills him. And then he escorts him home, takes him back to his father and his mother with his wife and the money. And then he reveals himself to be Raphael. Now, in the book of Enoch, now we get to the Nephilim. The fallen angels engendered a hybrid race. These creatures were part reptilian and part human. And they grew gigantic, more powerful, apparently more intelligent. They started treating humanity as animals. They actually started eating human beings. And the humans asked Enoch to go and intercede with God and say, God, please help us. So Enoch goes to God and tells him, look what the Watchers have done. Look at the Nephilim, what they're doing to humanity. So God called Michael the Archangel, Raphael the Archangel, Gabriel, and Phanuel. And he said, look at what the Watchers have done. They're defiling the earth. Go, catch the Watchers. Bury them deep in a hole in the desert. Bury them on their backs. Cover them with stone in such a way that sunlight never reaches them. But let them be looking up so they see the evil that their children have done. And then lead the children of the Watchers into wars with one another, that they may destroy themselves and protect mankind. The Watchers, when they lost their higher consciousness, they thought they were slick. They didn't know that their VMAT-2 gene, the God gene, was operant and active, and that their minds were in direct contact with the Godhead. And so they decided to do this thing to break the imperial directive, don't mess with the experiment, because that's what I think it was. But they decided, those women are nice, and we'd love to have children. Let's see what we make. So when they did that, their VMAT-2 gene was chopped, and they crashed. They crashed like the worst cocaine or heroin addict could ever crash when deprived, because they were cut off from the bliss and the blessings of being in direct contact with God. And so there's a scene in the book of Enoch where they're lamenting and crying and weeping because they've lost this communications uplink with Godhead. So they ask Enoch to go to God and ask him to forgive them. So Enoch goes to God and he says, the Watchers are begging forgiveness. And God says, go tell the Watchers that they should have been here interceding for man, not man here interceding for them. No, they will not be forgiven. What they have done is defile the earth. And that's when he calls Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel to come and save the earth. And if it were not for those 4 archangels protecting the earth right now, as I speak, we would be gone. And the battle is on. Humanity is being attacked, as I said, on every level. Biological, economical, emotional, psychological, and psychic. And this is where these demonic influences are attacking people. So folks, when you have bad thoughts, ask yourself, is this thought I'm thinking truly my own? Turn to God. Have a happy heart. Our friend who is recovering, they are attacking your heart. They're trying to make you feel doubt, and they're trying to depress you and depress your heart. Hold on to a happy heart. Hold on to a holy heart. Do you know that the origin of the word holy means happy? So when they say invoking or receiving the Holy Spirit, it's a happy spirit. You will feel joy, and you will feel close to God.
Yeah, the term Robert, that's a really that's great. Thank you. I never had heard that before. Eudaimonia, which I believe is ancient Koine Greek. Daimonia. You is the prefix for good, of course, and as in euphoria or euthanasia or anything along those lines. But eudaimonia, literally meaning the good demon within, is
demons. Yes,
that's right, and that's why I talk about meditation so often, and how it just means happiness, eudaimonia, but with meditation as the tool that we need to use to exercise. And it's interesting, how do you spell exercise, Vinny? Or profit? How about profit, Vinny? Profit. Well, there's 2 ways for each, of course, and I think there's other examples. Right. But it's interesting because you really do have to exercise. Spiritual exercises, and to purge yourself, essentially, but also transformation of energies. Robert, how about that transformation?
Very interesting what you just said.
Yeah,
and it bears very heavily on what we're talking about, on the therapies, exercise, like exorcism.
Yeah.
Well, we've been invaded, and we have this malevolent spirit in us, this fungus, if you will. And this Spanish group of researchers called Quinta Columna has pointed out that exercising, physical exercising like sports or activity, produces glutathione in the body. And this glutathione is an antidote that will kill the spike protein and these fungi that are part of this witch's brew that's been injected into people. I think Janon wants to
sure.
speak on it.
Yeah, we would like to hear a little more from her.
Expertise on this.
A little more, yeah.
Yes. Well, just recently I was giving some thought to the fact that, as I beginning to suspect, this is quite ancient. So whereas the technology now and the medicine situation that we're in, has made maybe a Rolls-Royce version, I think we, a super powerful version of whatever they're trying to do in our system. But I do think this element that we were discussing in terms of the humanity's history and the fact that this fungal complex it definitely includes bacteria and algae and other virus and so forth, as well as the metal component, because it's not regular fungus, of course. The fact is that this does manifest on our skin and as well as internally. And so I was giving some thought to the fact that in cultures all around the world, we touched on this some time ago, that the Swedish people, have the sauna tradition,
right?
And they have, and they also have the Swedish massage tradition, the oils on the skin and the loofah, because this does not come off that easily. It does require heating the body through exercise, through purification, basically. And I just realized that the Native Americans, with their sweat lodge tradition, and the sweat lodge is a very similar idea. You heat the body, and then you go and wash, off skin, in the water, in a lake or whatever it is, and the result is purification. And the Chinese understand that disease, they associate it with an evil spirit, and so many cultures, the Indian people have the tradition of bathing in like turmeric. They have these wonderful traditions with bentonite clay, with they know about putting clays on their body, and how to cleanse deeply, and it really makes a difference. And without those methods, it really is hard to purify of this particular element, and it's an ongoing dedication. So it's just it seems to be something that people have had insight into far back in history, and they have found the ways of always renewing, refreshing their heart with the meditation and singing, dancing, and laughter, and the arts and so on, and finding these ways to always keep strong in this purifying effort and this uplifting effort of the happiness that Robert mentioned. So, and with that, there does seem to be, of course, it is the greatest power, and it really can do a great deal of good. So those are just some things to add.
Yeah, South Korea is very similar. They have the jimjilbang, is what they're called, jimjilbangs. You might see them around New York. There's a K-town, I think, in New York, if I'm not mistaken. But they're like saunas, and then they have a bath where you kind of wash yourself off. But yeah, the purging of the toxins and the dead skin, which they call te, which if you slow it down, detritus, but also dead, of course, too, right? It's dead. So.
Oh, another therapy that I highly recommend is the ionic foot bath.
Oh.
You can buy that very inexpensive. I think on Amazon you can get it $59 to $100. Really? I have an advanced machine. You put your feet in it. You put a ground contact on your wrist. You put the coil into the water with a certain amount of salt, and in half an hour, you won't believe what you see. The water first turns a little turbid, and all of a sudden, it turns black, like the ink coming out of a giant squid or squid or an octopus. It just blows it
goes
right
from
up.
Yellow to reddish to dark.
To purple.
Wait a minute.
And I had problems. Today is the first day that I felt normal in 3 weeks.
Yeah, you look good.
Thank you. Well, I used it on my hands as well, because you don't know how much toxin metals you're absorbing. Handle objects, people who are mechanics. I used to work on car engines. Yeah. So, and all of those solvents, it gets into your system. I put my hands into this ionic foot bath for my hands, and then the same thing happened. It just blew out all these heavy metals out of my hands. Yeah. So that's something I recommend to people to detox.
Cool.
But unfortunately, there may be a little bit more to this, like what we thought was dead skin. There might be something more to it along the lines of what we were discussing, because from what I've observed, through magnification, slight magnification or more, like it's really this kind of gooey substance. It may be that it permeates the skin to some degree, or it may be a superficial layer on this top of the skin. I'm not sure, but the thing is that it's beyond skin, and a lot of what we think it might be skin or other features that we might have called something else. It might actually be this, because from what I've observed, I always see the same elements, like a black strand, red strand, white strands, and clear strands, and yellowish. So I always see the same elements, no matter what part of the body, no matter what time of day or month.
The strands may be the graphene, and the white stuff, the hydrogel.
Yeah, they're
working in concert.
They're not strands is a nice way to put it, but they're not natural. They're somewhat natural looking, but not really. They're more like wires and soft wires, and they interact together. Yeah, and I'm sorry.
Filaments is what Vinny said.
Yeah, filaments, exactly. It's like similar to fungal hyphae, but they're not. They really are not so beautiful as a true fungus would be at all. They're definitely awkward looking. So
yeah, it's our bodies are receptive to fungi, and they found a way to weaponize that. That's what we're facing.
Exactly. Well said, and exactly. So the thing is, this is the perfect thing because no one can notice it. You can easily dismiss it, and we don't understand that it's in us and how it can affect us, and so forth. And so it's just the most subtle possible, level of our existence, But when it's removed, there's such a wonderful, it's a feeling of, well-being, but it's an ongoing effort, and, so, but it's not the only thing we're facing, but it seems to be one of the most crucial, and very, very subtle things that, so.
Ionic foot bath is, I believe, what
ionic foot bath.
Yeah. So that's great. That's really good news. This is certainly something I've got to bounce off of the blue-pilled wife. I think she'll actually go for this because of its feminine allure, of course, wellness, well-being, and the fact of she's probably heard of these anyways. She knows about them, and we've talked about this. How one of the things she's wanted actually is this. Sometimes you can have a bath where don't they put leeches in the water or something that these little fish that eat the detritus, they take the detritus off your
I've
skin.
heard of that.
Yeah, but this is a different. I think the technique that you've suggested it's different, and it might be even better because of what you can see. You can see the toxins coming out in the water like that. That's incredible. And that's just not from your feet. That's your entire body being drained. Is that right?
Yeah, because the heavy metals sink, right? They've got weight. And so over time, if you take it in your hands or your hair, it migrates through your body and sinks down.
Oh, wow.
The Japanese have these foot pads. I'm sure you've seen them. They're very popular. You put them in your shoes. You wear them. All of a sudden, they turn black because they start to leach out the heavy metals. But this is a more rapid therapy.
Yeah.
30 minutes. 45 minutes.
Yeah,
no chance you won't be electrocuted. No chance of electrocution.
No.
Okay.
I discussed the last time, if you do put something, sometimes if you find the right substance, I've seen this sometimes with shea butter, putting on my skin, it will draw it out somehow, and you'll see these incredible, black, just coming out of your skin.
Wow.
And also, there are things. Let's say you don't want to do. There are so many things like the tapping that's done in Oriental cultures. This is another way because of greatly helping the situation. It really helps the body to purge it, not only through the skin but through the best channels. Internally.
You're talking about the hammers, the little tapping with the hammers.
Yes, there are many different tapping traditions.
Yeah,
and
the sauna.
Really good.
The sauna requires not just the sauna, but after the sauna, the Swedish take branches of leaves and they smack the body. That's also another way of purging these things out of the body. Yeah. And then the soaking in cold water.
Well, yeah, they make a run out, make a beeline for the freezing waters of.
That's the part I leave out.
Yeah. well, you know, and the belief there too is, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. It's kind of goes back to Viking days, I guess. But you know, because it's such a shock on the system, clearly from one extreme to the other. Oh my God. Yes, really good for you.
Just quickly, you know, aloe vera, something of the consistency of yogurt or aloe vera or the bentonite clay. If your skin is fine, you don't see any pimples or any problems, you know, but you just want the daily, you know, cleansing, then if you put something of that consistency on your skin, then place your fingertip over the skin, and basically it's as if you might then be able to feel something come to this, like otherwise you cannot feel it. But if you put something of that consistency and then gently move your fingertips over your skin, you may feel something a little sharp, a little granular, as well as gooey. And when you get to that spot, you know, massage it and until it sort of releases. And then until the skin feels all smooth. And if you and then you can rinse it off or whatever, if you're on your arm, let's say. And this is a fascinating thing also, different ways that we can sense it on our skin, but without that, it's very hard to sense it. Yeah. But with the fingertip is an excellent sensing for it, and it will come. It's just a fascinating thing because it's a combination between hard and gooey, and so you know you can tell it right away that way.
Yeah. I wanted to say something. A lot of people may be hearing this and thinking, you know, that's not possible, but it's happening all around the world. It's happening all across the country. I got a call a couple of months ago from a friend of mine, military guy. He calls me up and he says, "Hey, Robert, what are all these little black rocks that are coming out of people's body at the health club?" Little black rocks? Yeah. They're appearing on people's skin, and you know they're like little rocks. This is what we're talking about, folks. Some have been injected. We've been chemtrailed. We've been exposed to aerosol vaccines. You know, they've been spraying, and that's another kind of thing, an aerosol vaccine. And we've been shed upon by people who got the shot. So the whole atmosphere is permeated with all of these particles. And all they have to do is settle on your skin, settle on your hair, and they're infused, they're in you. And so these are ways that we're sharing that you can deal with it. It's not fatal, it's a nuisance, but there are a lot of things that you can do, diet-wise, exercise, exorcise it out of your body through exercise. Glutathione is very important in this regard. Exercise produces glutathione. If you can't exercise, you can take glutathione. And then as far as heart conditions and protecting your heart, CoQ10 is a very important enzyme. So guard your heart. Be of good cheer.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And hold on to your happiness.
This is a very special conversation. And basically, just to say that, you know, including everything that Robert said, as I mentioned, you know, I don't know. This may be very ancient. At least one form of this may be very ancient, and it's maybe something the human condition on Earth has had to deal with for quite a while. So it's not even from the shedding. It's more than the shedding, more than the chemtrails, more than all that. So basically, all the traditions like acupuncture, acupressure, all the yoga traditions, qigong, all the tai chi, and all these things help so much.
Yeah.
And they found out it really does. And then as well, the as we were discussing this connection, to the benevolent truth of our existence, is so important. They did find that prayers and meditations, that it actually is a medicine. If you're truly doing it from your heart, it really is a medicine. And for this as well, this has been shown by Anna Mahalsia and others. So they've been able to measure. So it's fascinating subject, and there's so much to say about it. I hope people will start to look into it. It's wonderful, like what people can discover in this area.
Yeah, do a lot of research. Educate yourselves on these things. You are your own doctor nowadays. I don't trust any MD who participated in those COVID programs. If I can go back, I know we're running short on time. I want to go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls for a moment and tell you that just as that damage was done to the Adamic genome, there was a repair program. It's called the Reparation of Christ. In metaphysics and theology, there is this term that Christ came and sacrificed himself so that we would all be redeemed. Redemption is healing. And reparation means repair. So in the Essene community at Qumran, there was a long-term genetic repair program going on, and it culminated with the birth of John the Baptist and Jesus Christ. So the repair of the human genome is feasible. And now we do have a technology that can help us repair the DNA that's been damaged. And there is science now of age reversal. Suritins, Yale, Harvard University was doing a lot of work on these things. NADH, NAD+, NAD3, nicotinamide. All of these supplements work to repair the damage to our DNA. So keep the faith, have hope, don't despair. You are your own healer. And the more upbeat you can be, keep your heart and your feelings and your emotions. Don't let depression attack you. Don't start to doubt yourself, because that'll only depress your immune system. You want to stimulate it. Listen to happy music. Listen to joyful music. Expose yourself to good vibrations. There's a science called cymatics, and there are tones that you can use. You can meditate on 428 hertz and 432 and 532. They call them healing tones. You can find them on YouTube, like up to 3-hour extended tonal sounds that put them in your environment. I've learned how to use, there are these online frequency generators, and you can turn them on and just put a particular frequency on and let it just buzz in the background, and you'll feel your environment calm down, because we're being assailed by really negative frequencies all the time.
Yeah.
And just as there are noise-canceling headsets, there are noise-canceling frequencies. So all of these are alternate therapies to keep yourself in a positive state of being.
Holism, I think, is really the operative term here that Janan and yourself really, and the rest of us here, we're kind of dancing around, but that really, I think, sums it up nicely. Attunement and atonement. Look at those two words, folks. Attunement and atonement. Just like with meditation and medication, it's the one consonant change. With attunement and atonement, it's the one vowel that you shift around. So we're be mindful of how of spelling and
Yes.
how
like I know Chomsky's manufactured consent.
Yes,
which has to cut out to change that S into an N to content.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Necessary allusions.
And another way of pronouncing atonement is at one ment.
That's right. Correctamundo. Yes, indeed.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes. I think just one more point here about your conversation regarding druidry and everything like this. It's, and of course, many cultures around the world have very deeper, wonderful deep insights into the natural world and nature. And it is true that I've been studying that the natural world, we have vegetable kingdom, mineral kingdom, and we have animal kingdom. And there is a lot to explore in terms of what is the essence of rocks, of water, of sky, and what are what is the difference that we may have and what we share as well, and with the animal kingdom, and how does this all work in terms of souls, in terms of energy that's very close with truth and the reality of the truth of our existence, the love in our existence. There are differences, let's say, between what we might say angels and we might say souls and beings. And so these are all wonderful questions, but the point being that when we are connected to trees, to water, to rocks, actually we might be connecting to something very close, to maybe the closest we can be on earth, to something physical that connects us to something very sacred and holy. So that is another source of support, that we have most intimately right here with us, right here with us. And somehow or other, the many animals, of course, are suffering a lot, terribly, of course. But there are also those that are transcending, because they're also being exposed to so much negativity as well, tremendous negativity all over the earth in so many forms. And they are finding their connection is somehow very strong. And so they do have their great inspiration to this, and support for overcoming, to whatever extent we're able. So I just wanted to bring that.
Well, the last point I kind of missed out on, as far as the positive end of the equation, as you see it, is that this is with the suffering of animals is the one point you made, and then the flip side is how they flourish, and
yes.
how they as they transcend, and
they
so
transcend.
Forth.
Also, the healing powers of animals. The healing powers of animals in the hospitals and in infirmaries.
I'm just saying, as a whole on Earth, life is suffering, no question.
Right.
Everything has been diminished a great deal. Nevertheless, those that many are, there are, we can see a transcendence among, thank goodness, at this point, we can still see the trees, we can still growing, we can see growing.
We're talking about adaptation.
Growing things.
Yeah.
We can see the birds, at least, at least in some places.
Oh, yeah.
But where they are still alive, we can see a great capacity to transcend. So all I'm saying is that if we can connect, within a natural world, it can be very helpful for the soothing of the body, supportive of the body, well-being.
Yeah. Let's not forget grounding your feet to Mother Earth.
Right.
3 years ago, the National Institute of Health put out a paper saying that grounding, standing for 5 minutes with your bare feet on the ground, brings up energies into the body that fights infections, inflammations, and even cancer.
National Institute of Health, a real that's the most conservative.
Of all places to read. Another thing I read in one of their papers is that coconut oil killed cancers in vitro. They took cancer cells and put them in a petri dish, and they put in coconut oil, and the coconut oil killed the cancers. Right. So there's a whole list of new cancer therapies because cancer is a big profit industry,
And a fungus, as you have been mentioning, that this term
that's
fungus.
Right.
I believe it's been an induced condition all this time.
Fueled by sugar in many instances.
Cancer feeds on sugar, but of all things, bicarbonate of soda is one of the things that kills cancer.
Right.
Many years, 15 years ago, Dr. Tullo Simoncini in Rome, a Roman oncologist, he was treating breast cancers with injections of bicarbonate of soda. He would take an infected breast of a woman, and he'd put 7 shots around the tumor, and the tumor would start to ooze. All this white fungus would come out. And he was saving a lot of women's lives with this technique. But of course, the medical mafia went after him and took away his medical license. But the secret is out.
Yes. And just imagine if all this time we've been thinking about fungus, but we didn't think about the possibility that fungus is, there's much more to it. And it's not really a natural. And the same thing you'll hear nowadays, a lot of talk about parasites and so on. It turns out that this is related to the quantum dot technology at its core. And then it evolves into these strands, and these strands may be be able to be either they're a different thing or they're related closely somehow with this other forms that it can make. It's all artificial, but it is reminiscent of something biological. So people say a parasite, but they're not really talking about a natural at all, a natural parasite or a natural fungus.
So synthetic is what you're saying. Synthetic.
Yes.
Now I'm not sure. Did I hear binary too? I think you're saying it could be one or the other? So like an on-off switch, or am I totally missing on that front? The binary.
No, I don't think I don't know about that. But synthetic biology is a good to say it. But there are many other ways to express it as well. And so, but basically that's
the weaponization is just time and again we keep coming back to it, and then how were we as above so below. Is that really such a bad thing? They see it in the Baphomet context, pretty scary stuff, but I mean, I'll tell you something we got here, because and a lot of this goes back to Gnosticism, I suppose, waking up, which is really essential to the Gnostic traditions, that it really it really rattles a lot of fundamentalist Christians that they're not really down with this whole business of Gnosticism for whatever reason.
Well, let's not forget the archons.
The demiurge,
But the archons are these entities that were created at the same time that life was created. The archons were created, and that's they are denizens of this other world, and they're basically anti-life. They're leeches. They're leeches on vitality, human and animal vitality.
Wow.
So the Gnostics were on the right track on a lot of insight. They were very intelligent people.
Yeah, because it seems that some of these races or entities that are interested in, they have a few different purposes, and so among them, it could be somehow harvesting energy and through this means and other things. So it's just something so vast. It's so sophisticated. It's so immense, that kind of hard to fathom it. And that's how one way, to me, that I'm convinced that we're dealing with something very, very, very far beyond anything we may be able to conceive of. So it's just great to just begin to, just have a little bit of awareness and just do all the good things that we know. But it's very, very hard to fathom.
One of the things that science has done to impotentize humanity is to make you disbelieve in the spiritual world, the psychic world, and these negative spiritual entities. The archons, as we have evolved and have been exposed to extraterrestrial intrusions, the archons may be interdimensional reptilian entities that have this capacity. They have a chameleon-like ability to disguise themselves, like a chameleon and other certain animals and insects in the natural world can mimic their background.
Yeah.
So they're right there in front of you. Walking stick is a perfect example.
Yes.
Walking stick.
Yeah.
A perfect example of something that can kind of camouflage itself, and just by stillness, you will not realize that it's there.
Well,
a chameleon can take the pattern that's in the background. And so these entities are real. And I'd like to just close by saying to everyone, there are three tricks of the devil. The first trick of the devil is to make you believe that he doesn't exist. The second trick of the devil is to make you believe that he is God. And the third trick of the devil is to make you believe that you are God. Mm-hmm. So those three tricks are something to be avoided. And there's a philosophy that's being pushed all around us now, that man is God.
Oh.
And that is the first step to perdition.
Yeah.
So perdition meaning losing yourself, losing your way in the natural world.
Mm-hmm. And somehow, this is somehow tied in with AI, and no matter how much, no matter how much we are hearing that there are some wonderful potentials to all technology, and this could be true maybe in another realm, but right now, on Earth, right now, I think we're coming up to a major struggle, and a lot of big changes. And
Day of Reckoning. I was just listening to this Johnny Cash song. I think Sheryl Crow did originally, and then they did there's a really great duet that they have on via YouTube, Redemption Day. So, but Day of Reckoning, and just okay. You continue just in summarizing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the perfect thing. Yeah, we just express it. And so right now, unfortunately, as far as I can see, choosing anything to do with AI, pretty much anything to do with AI, I'm sure there might be some way we can, but I don't see it happening right now to make it good. So I think we have to be aware that sadly, at this point, technology is not on this side at this moment of humanity.
Yeah. Well, technological trappings, that's what they call it. Technological trappings, right? Cultural trappings, too. So, and hey, Jaffe, come on, stop interrupting. Shut your trap. Shut your trap.
AI is a trap. to deprive you
yeah,
of your own creativity.
Yeah.
It's a lazy brain technology.
Right.
And Janan and I were listening to an interrogation of an AI, and ultimately the interrogator got it to admit that it was Nephilim.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Is that recorded? Do you have that recorded? Is that accessible through the interwebs? You have a link?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay. That is incredible. Well, and just I got to get this out there, but the whole thing, because we were discussing a couple days ago in the lead up to all this Freemasonry, which we never even got into this go around. Of course, Mormonism is a crypto form of Freemasonry, whether people realize it or not. It's like, come on, folks. And then in addition to that, Masonry at its roots is at its core roots said to be a form of crypto Judaism. How about that, people?
Well, that's what it became. It became that after the infiltration of
Sabbatai Zevi and his crowd.
That's when it became that. Because the Masons go back to ancient Egypt, you know, before there were any Jewish tribes.
Yeah, and there's also...
But infiltration's been a hallmark of their activities.
Some fascinating research in terms of, very things that occurred, not that long ago that were going on in Mongolia. And, and actually, according to some people associated with this Jesus Christ story, that it's a very, very unusual story. And apparently for 40 days, he was on earth after death in a glorified form. And at that point, visited all the people he had known in that life in certain, to affirm and highlight certain of the experiences they had shared. But then after that, he apparently, according to accounts, he ascended, into heaven. But after that, apparently came back again on the earth and went all over the earth to the different places that around the world.
Well, that's where the Mormons come in.
And Japan. As far as Japan, everyone knows the UK, of course. That angle, that end of the story. But Japan, wow, that's really pushing it.
Right.
But the Mormons believe that Quetzalcoatl, also known
Central
as
America.
Morningstar,
Central America.
Quetzalcoatl was the apparition of Christ after his resurrection. That he came here to preach the gospel to the lost tribes.
Yeah. But as we discussed another time, there may be certain parts of the earth that are portals or hyperdimensional.
Ley lines,
Ley lines, and it was a kind of, blessing on the earth and for the people to show them a path that affirm that they have the path to overcome if they wish to, and so it's fascinating because all around the world at different times, there has been a time when cultures have been drawn into, very negative practices to do with blood and children and et cetera.
War.
War, exactly, horrible things. And as it says, in the scripture there with St. Paul, it says, remember when we are fighting, we're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against spiritual entities that are influencing us. So we have to put on, that's where the armor of the Creator, and he explains the details of that. And so there's a lot, this way when we see war, when we see these things, as Robert gave some wonderful examples, we ask for we support the benevolent ones that are engaged in the struggle on a spiritual level, as well as do our part. And so these are the things, we can be aware of if we want to explore it a little.
That's kind of why I brought up this business of as above, so below, which the Baphomet tradition seems to be pointing at, if you'll excuse the pun. But also here in Korea, right on our door, we have a little Buddha sticker, and the Buddha, smiley face Buddha, pointing to the sky and pointing below, which is, to the ground, which is, I think that's one of the first things he did upon achieving enlightenment. He did that very thing. And in addition to that, so as above, so below, in addition to that, he really wanted to ground himself, to have the earth acknowledge where he was at, what he had achieved. Is like he transcended all the confusion, delusion, temptations, and so forth, and there we go. So some pretty powerful stuff. And guess what, folks? You can do it too, is what he was saying. You are the Buddha. Work out your salvation with diligence. Take a look as well. I would recommend. Hey, was this going to get us shut down for recommending different books to read? Probably at some point it will, of course.
Sure.
It's like, you can't read that book. The Dhammapada, guarding the mind, basically is what it's the power of the mind and guarding the mind. The same as a well-thatched roof, a poorly thatched roof, all things will leak in, and enter in, and fall in and enter into it, the space. Whereas a well-thatched roof that you care for closely and guard over, that tend to quite religiously, that it will defend, it will be able to repel and really serve you well throughout the course of your life. So think about that, folks.
Jeffy, the earliest icon that has that gesture of one palm up and one palm down in my studies is Vishnu. Okay. The preserver.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and the mudra, the mudra, you know what a mudra is, I guess, right? The hand gesture, hand sign. The mudra of the right hand up. Do you know what that actually means in the Buddhist or Dharmic traditions? The right palm up facing the other. It means fear not. No fear. Don't be afraid.
Yes. Now is this gesture.
Yeah.
Which I'm showing for those people who will see the video.
Right.
This is called the gesture of fearlessness.
Okay.
From the Buddha Kuan Yin, and you would be amazed. It's just standing up your hand perfectly straight up in front of your heart, and walking down the street in New York. You get approached by really unusual people.
Wow.
I'll just use that kind term. And when I've been on my path and I see them coming, I just put up my hand like this and just keep walking, and they will never bother you. It's not aggressive in any way.
Yeah. It's like
not saying stop, like putting your palm out like that. It's just standing your hand straight up like that.
Brilliant.
And walking straight on.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful and benevolent gesture.
There's your value-added content, folks. If you haven't already got enough throughout the course of our now nearly 3-hour live stream, my God, don't let the two of us get started here, or the three of us, or Vinny too. I mean, throw into the mix. Look out, you're in big trouble. So
I've still been pretty good up there in the crow's nest, man.
Yeah, is he falling asleep? We did have him. Let's see.
No, he's there. He's sending smile signs.
Okay, so yeah.
Oh yeah.
Vinny in the crow's nest.
Got the brewskis there too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good stuff.
Thank you. You had mentioned the Greek language earlier.
Yep.
With the word. So I just want to share this last, which is in Greek. I think I'm not sure which of the Greek evolution of the language it's from, but there, as you mentioned, EU means beautiful. And so the word for prayer in that is pro siu geme, or geme, and it means like pro as in going towards or for or supporting, and then beautiful, and then listening is at the end.
Yar.
Deep listen.
Prayar.
Prosio. or Heme.
I thought you said prayer.
Yes.
Yeah, the word prayer.
Oh, right. The word for prayer
came from
that's one of the
proseuomai.
Greek words for prayer.
Oh, okay.
And it has
Can we hear that one more time? I'm sorry. One more time. Break it down for us, please.
Yeah. Pros, and then the EU, pros,
yeah. Okay, going towards the beautiful or good, yes.
Exactly. And then He, C-H-E, or She, and in Hebrew you have Shemai, means deeply listen, deeply hear.
Do you know prochain, en français, prochain is next, means next. Yeah, so prochain, next. So
this pros, she, or ke, or heme.
Right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
So
good. Brilliant.
It's showing that that there's not maybe as much distinction between prayer and meditation as we've been told, because you're actually, the deep in the ancient words for prayer, like in other languages, they're showing a lot of times that you are listening, and that it has something to do with listening deeply in your heart, and also listening for an answer, or for a response of some kind, many different forms of answer. And that you're really attuning, as you mentioned, with and so this is towards the beautiful and the good. So I think that's the essence of what we're trying to share here. And
one of the most cogent descriptions I ever heard, a distinction between prayer and meditation, was that when you pray, you are speaking to God, and when you meditate, you are quieting yourself to let God speak to you.
Yeah, but that's what we're told. That's usually true, and that's what we're told. But as you can see in the real meaning of the word prayer, the deepest meaning, it includes a great deal about listening, hearing, and also awareness of the heart, because in Hebrew, one of the words for prayer, tefillah, is labor, means labor of the heart. Because it's as if the heart is giving birth almost. It's an effort, it's a work, and but it's gentle, but it's not that easy sometimes to know what's in the heart. So we have to quiet and have the peace to be able to hear, to be able to feel. And so it's
a prayer should come from the heart. And one of the most interesting things to me about the Chinese language is when we in the West say the mind, we always place it in the brain, in the head. But the word xin, S-Y-I-N, xin,
heart.
It's the heart. That's the Chinese say the mind.
Korean too. That's right, shim. Yeah.
Yes. So, and Jesus said, "Where thy heart is, there is your treasure also." So that there are these three sayings that Jesus said that always point me to yoga. When thine eye be single, thy body shall be full of light. That's the third eye. Where your heart is, there is your treasure also. And he said, speaking to himself of himself as the water of life, he who drinks of me shall never thirst, for out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. And that's down here, the dantian, the generative force in our nature, the sexual force. Those are the living waters. And when you take the living waters and collect them, in Taoism, you learn to direct them through your chakras, through your spine, up through the spine, to activate each chakra as it rises, and then behind the heart to wash the heart, and then it projects it and arrives at there are three blockages to the flow of the life force from the tail to the crown. The lower gate is in your sacrum. That's the Kundalini.
Mm-hmm.
The middle gate is in the region of the kidneys, and the jade gate. The jade gate is in the back of your neck, and that's the hardest one to open because our heads fall off our bodies. We become crooked. The head should be up at the top of the neck, and the neck should be up at the top of the spine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole reconstruction project involved, and a lot of it involves the skeleton, because the skeleton is in its natural, magnificent, natural state is what holds all the organs in suspension and in correct relationship to one another. But when you slouch, or when you crook your neck, or when you lean back or pitch forward, you throw all of the organs into unnatural relationships to each other. And they breed malaise, and after malaise comes illness and disease. And accidents, that's another thing. When your skeleton is out of alignment, your balance will not be true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the third pitfall, which is the consequences of accidents, which I know so very well now.
Yes, I think, I think it's very, very interesting that the Catholic, people in the Catholic faith, they, when they say, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, they touch their third eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Say, in the name of the Father, and the Son is in the Dantian area that Robert just described, below the belly button. And then they say, Holy Ghost, and they go across the heart.
Yeah. And
so I think that indicates that somehow for them, that's the Sacred Trinity is one, which is one as a holy, sacred creator. And so basically, they're expressing, all the three centers of the body are part of this holiness.
That's a beautiful insight.
Yeah, it's a very remarkable thing, because it's of course they speak openly, very clearly in their way about the fact that one element of this Trinity is absolutely living in us. That would be the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, which is connecting us, to all beings. And so, of course, that's very similar to Buddhism, but in the Catholic indicates that other elements, aspects of Creator as well, but around us and beyond us as well. But it's showing that that we are living, and so it's living within us and very much alive. And so, basically, when we become, explore these things, we might discover some fascinating experiences. And one prayer that was given to a special person at some point in Europe, I can get you the name, but basically it's also a prayer for overcoming evil within us and around us and beyond us. So it's basically saying, acknowledging the oneness, the connectedness of all of our hearts, all of our beings, and just contemplating those thoughts somehow can also is tremendously meaningful, and is somehow very supportive of overcoming evil. So
there's also an element of acupuncture or acupressure involved in making the sign of the cross, in that you are conducting energy when you go from the third eye to the dantian and then across the heart chakra. You're leading energy. Remember, energy is not just inside your body. The energy field is around our bodies. So you're actually tracing a course for it to follow. So the gesture is very benign and very beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do that. I'm not Catholic myself, but I often I practice employ that, I guess is the word we're looking for. Use that the sign of the cross along with body, speech, and mind, from the crown chakra to the lips, to the heart, to the palm together in supplication.
Right.
Maum, no, how does it get straight now? No, mom, maum. No. Mom Malm is in Korean, body, speech, and mind. And yes, that's it. The Tibetans do that. Transformation of energy, too. This is so critical, folks, that take the energy, transform. You might have something negative, work with it. Work
It's like
with
tracing ley lines of the human body. That's acupuncture.
Yeah.
I recommend meridian tracing. Get a book on acupuncture meridians, and then just trace them on your body. The energy will follow your trace and will start to circulate.
Nice.
That's another important aspect of my self-healing practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Janon, final comment, and then I guess to Vinny, and we got to put this one to bed.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you, everyone, for just incredibly, truly comprehensive discussion. Everything that
taking it pretty
really
deep.
Care about.
Yeah. Good
you.
stuff. Thank you so much, both of you, and yeah, just really very appreciative, and I'm sure many of our listeners are already, and many in the future will continue to be those who are fortunate enough to come across our archive version of this week's feature show conversation number 324, Secrets of the Occult, with Robert Morningstar and special friend and companion Janon. They're working from out of the wings. Vinny out of Brooklyn. Let's see. We've got to connect with him. I think he's still there up in the crow's nest. Yes, we hear we are connecting. So the Techno Kraken, throughout the course of our sailing out here on the high digital seas, any sight the Techno Kraken, any concerns, or how have things gone as far as you're concerned?
Just seeing a couple of tentacles, but nothing to worry about.
Yeah. So
anyway, great show, guys. Thank you very much. Had a wonderful time.
Ionic foot cleanser, a foot bath, ionic foot bath. Let's not. Very affordable. Vinny, does your mom have one of those?
No, I wish that sounds like something I wish I had had, but I'd recommend it.
There's still time.
Yes.
You got 1 foot yourself, but I mean, you could do 1 foot, and of course your mother, I'm sure, would just love something like that as a birthday present or for Christmas. It's only, what is it? It's not even $100. Is that right?
Yeah, so there are various types, and my friend bought one for $59, and he sent me a photograph of his first batch. You put your foot in a foot basin, but it looked like squid ink. Just cleans you. Totally.
This is science.
And it's comfortable.
Yeah,
it's very pleasant.
Yeah,
by the way. It's very comfortable.
What's going to happen if I add CBD salts?
Well, I use Epsom salts myself.
Aha. So that it's complementary, then, is what you're saying. It's nothing to worry about. Go for it.
I don't think it'd be bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just between us, so of course we're not sharing this with the wider public or encouraging anyone to follow suit. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Janon?
But baths are, we didn't really dwell upon baths, but it's also, you can find a lot of very good information regarding helping this situation we've been discussing, with different baths and Epsom.
Salts and aromatic salts. Sunday, on my show on Sunday, I'm going to have a special guest, Maurice Ham, who specializes in healing salts of various kinds. So Revolution Radio at 3 o'clock Eastern on Studio A. And last week I spoke about shungite, which is this remarkable stone that comes from Russia, where a giant meteor, sounds to me like an asteroid, hit the Earth 2 billion years ago. And this stone, shungite, has a high content of fullerenes, the buckyballs, fullerenes. It's a spherical carbon molecule made out of 60 atoms, and it contains every other mineral in the periodic table.
You're referring to Buckminster Fuller, the buckyballs?
Yeah, Buckminster Fuller. I thought he invented it,
okay,
but he actually discovered it, and it's embedded in great quantities in this stone called shungite.
Okay.
Which sounds remarkable to me that it should contain every element in the periodic table.
Great. Even what was it? The one that Bob Lazar he talked about, and then it just came to light recently. By God,
element 115.
Yeah.
Element 115.
Yeah. So it's really, and that's the way science is done, folks. Sometimes it does take a little time, but truth will out. So there we go. It's been a great ride. Of course, we have your Substack link. It works. Actually, I checked it during the show, and not a problem there. So, and Vinny Kantz, the children are not sex toys. Very important to keep in mind, folks. And GMNO, genetically modified. No, his main
Link.
Mine's link. Come again?
Right. Oh, he beat two mugs of beer together. So I did the
yeah, that's right. Sure. Yeah, good stuff. Couple.
Yeah, Vinny, I hope to meet you soon. We'll try to get together.
Frothing
here, brother.
flagons of grog.
Good night, Shannon.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, okay. Happy sailing, Robert. Let's hope the two of them can get together and enjoy a frothing flagon of grog. Definitely that disclosure meeting coming up. When did he say that was, Vinny?
That's March 21st from 12 to 2.
Located
at the UN. I think it's at the UN. I'll send you the information. Okay. I just got it myself.
All
Daniel
right.
Sheehan.
All right. So, okay, there we go. The cats, this is it. The cats are crying out for their lunch. They know it's time, as well, we do as well. We'll be back this coming Tuesday, folks. No late night in Korea this go round. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are. Every 2 weeks, of course. But this coming Tuesday night, 8 p.m. out on the West Coast, 11 out on the East, with World Pirate Radio News. Wednesday, 12 noon here via the Seoul and Tokyo time zones. Remember to check out all of our links if you're wanting to help us out a little bit. Give us even a free boost, although we do appreciate those PayPal donations. Pirate1Radio@protonmail.com. Also good for guest suggestions or any show ideas you may have in mind. We got the Teespring link, Patreon, Patreon, yes, Patreon. Hope I didn't misspeak earlier, but remembering to like, comment, share, hit subscription notification buttons, pass word along to your friends, family, and co-workers. That's how you make the real the synergetic magic happen. So until we meet again, via these high, often all too intrepid digital seas, I'm your host, as always, the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Eyes to the sky, ear to the ground. Tally-ho! Aye now, there we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments,
checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time, once again, to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay.
Draw an end to yet another week of World Pirate Radio Live.
Remember,
If you're looking for a little more animated online action,
keep in mind we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show
coming up for the next hour in one of our more premium exclusive and remote digital underground online pirate hideaways. Also, if you yourself have a new,
novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email
via PirateOneRadio@protonmail.com.
We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes.
Remember, WPRPN.com member site subdomain links are also always available.
Great for artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, social media personalities,
or pretty much just any old landlubber
looking to boost their online visibility, presence, and reach.
Basic personal profile accounts can be launched for just $60 per year.
Staking your claim now helps not only strengthen you and the network, we're also looking out for the little guy. That's right, folks. As much as half of all WPRPN's profits are redirected right back into the hands of the people who really need it most. Community charity. After all, we are the Robin Hood.
You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, sharing,
commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook,
Gab,
or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas. I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.